You are not broken by life, you are untrained in how to govern your mind. Every reaction you call suffering begins as a judgment you never questioned, and a desire you never disciplined, and a fear you allowed to lead you. You wake up, and your attention is already pulled outward to things you cannot control, while your inner life remains unattended and exposed. This is where weakness forms, not in events, but in unchecked thinking. What follows in this video is a return to the only true freedom available to you, the governance of your own reason, above impulse and noise. If you are willing to examine yourself honestly, you will learn how to stand steady even when everything outside you shifts. If this work matters to you, consider subscribing and staying in this space where discipline is not motivation but daily practice and truth is spoken without decoration. Number 1. Accept only what lies within your complete control today. Stop now and look at your life without decoration. You are carrying too much that is not yours. You are arguing with weather that cannot hear you. You are exhausted by things you never had the power to command. You call it stress, you call it pressure, you call it a hard season. But much of your suffering is not coming from events themselves. It is coming from your demand that events obey you. That is the wound. That is the error. That is where your strength must begin. You do not become strong by hardening yourself against every feeling. You become strong by learning what belongs to you and what does not. Your choices belong to you. Your judgments belong to you. Your discipline belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. Your desire belongs to you. Your refusal to lie to yourself belongs to you. The praise of others does not belong to you. Their opinions do not belong to you. The weather does not belong to you. Time does not belong to you. The body is not fully yours to command. Fortune is not a servant that waits for your orders. Life will not ask permission before changing shape. It will not protect your pride. It will not spare your plans. It will not arrange itself to match your wishes. If you do not learn this now, you will spend your days colliding with reality and calling the bruises fate. So listen closely. The first act of strength is not resistance, it is distinction. Learn to separate what is up to you from what is not. This is the gate through which every honest life must pass. If you do not guard this gate, then your mind will run outward all day and return empty. You will place your peace in the hands of strangers. You will place your dignity in the hands of crowds. You will place your calm in the hands of outcomes you cannot guarantee. Then when life does what life always does, you will be surprised as if the world had betrayed a promise it never made. The world did not betray you. Your judgment did. Your expectation did. Your refusal to see clearly did. What is up to you? Your thoughts are up to you when you choose to inspect them before you obey them. Your words are up to you when you choose to speak with care instead of impulse. Your actions are up to you when you choose duty over comfort. Your refusal to sink into complaint is up to you. Your willingness to endure discomfort for the sake of right action is up to you. Your willingness to be honest when it would be easier to perform is up to you. Your capacity to say no to what weakens you is up to you. Your ability to return to reason after being stirred by anger or fear is up to you. That is your territory. Guard it like a fortress. Build nothing important outside of it. What is not up to you? Whether people understand you, whether they choose to be fair, whether they return your effort, whether they praise your work, whether they disappoint you, whether your body ages, whether sickness arrives, whether plans collapse, whether the day goes smoothly, whether the world is calm, whether you are noticed, whether the future arrives in the shape you wanted. These things may affect your comfort, but they do not determine your character unless you hand them that power. Many people do. They surrender their soul for a little convenience and then wonder why they feel weak. They let a late message ruin the evening. They let an insult settle in the chest like poison. They let a failed plan become a failed identity. They let one loss become a story of doom. They have confused disturbance with danger. They have confused irritation with injury. They have confused discomfort with defeat. You must stop this confusion. Every time your mind rushes toward what is outside your control, you are stepping away from freedom. Every time you return your focus to what is yours to govern, you are coming back to yourself. This is not a small discipline. This is the core of your life. The person who cannot command attention cannot command conduct. The person who cannot command conduct cannot command character. The person who cannot command character will be dragged by appetite, fear, and vanity until the body is old and the soul is still juvenile. Do not allow that to be said of you. Begin today. Before you rise from bed, ask yourself one question with complete honesty. What is mine to do today, and what is not mine to command? Say it plainly. Do not ornament it. Do not let your mind glide past it. Write down the duties that belong to you and the outcomes that do not. Your duty may be to speak truth in a difficult meeting. The result of that meeting is not yours to own. Your duty may be to care for your family with steadiness. Their moods are not yours to own. Your duty may be to do the work in front of you with attention. Whether others reward it is not yours to own. Your duty may be to train your body with discipline. Whether aging comes is not yours to own. When you make this separation at the start of the day, you begin in clarity instead of confusion. Then watch your mind through the day as if you were standing guard at a gate. Thoughts will arrive uninvited. That is natural. What matters is whether you admit them as rulers. A thought says they should have treated me better. Pause. Ask whether that judgment lies within your control. A thought says this should not be happening to me. Pause. Ask whether your demand changes reality. A thought says I cannot bear this. Pause. Ask whether you are speaking from truth or from weakness. A thought says I need them to approve of me. Pause. Ask whether your worth depends on another person's mood. A thought says if I fail, then I am nothing. Pause. Ask whether a single outcome can define your whole character. Each of these thoughts can be challenged. Each can be examined. Each can be returned to the light. That is the work. Not to silence every thought by force. Not to pretend you are beyond disturbance, but to refuse automatic obedience. A free mind does not obey every voice that enters it. This is why you must become severe with your own judgments. Not cruel, severe. There is a difference. Cruelty attacks. Severity examines. Cruelty is blind. Severity is clear. When your mind says this delay is unbearable, ask whether the delay has harmed your virtue. When your mind says this rejection is humiliation, ask whether someone else's choice can stain your character. When your mind says this pain is unfair, ask whether fairness is the measure of your duty. Life is not managed by fairness, it is managed by cause and effect, by nature, by change, by chance, by necessity. You do not need to like that, you need to see it. Wisdom begins when desire stops arguing with what is. The person who wants life to be easy will remain weak. The person who wants life to be truthful will become strong. Ease is not a teacher, hardship can be. When a problem arrives, you are given an opening. You can cry that it should not exist, or you can meet it as material for virtue. There is always a choice in the way you approach the obstacle, even when there is no choice in the obstacle itself. This is the dignity of human life. Not that nothing harms us, not that nothing pains us, but that the soul can choose its posture. You can be struck and still remain upright in judgment. You can be pressured and still remain clean in conduct. You can be misunderstood and still remain just. You can be deprived and still remain honorable. That is strength, not the absence of pressure, the refusal to be shaped by it in a corrupt way. Many people think strength means getting the world to cooperate. They are mistaken. Strength means cooperating with reason, even when the world does not. Strength means choosing what is right when no one rewards it. Strength means keeping your promise to yourself when no one is watching. Strength means holding your tongue when anger wants to rule. Strength means refusing to act from impulse when the body wants immediate relief. Strength means doing your duty without demanding that duty be pleasant. Strength means staying loyal to the good even when the good is costly. That is the kind of strength life cannot break because life cannot take it away. It belongs to the mind that has trained itself. Look at your daily reactions. They reveal your training. A small inconvenience exposes a large weakness. A missed message exposes your dependence. A rude remark exposes your vanity. A closed door exposes your attachment to outcomes. A little hunger exposes your softness. A little fatigue exposes your lack of discipline. Do not be embarrassed by these revelations. Be grateful for them. The problem is not that they appear. The problem is that people ignore what they reveal. Every irritation is a messenger. Every frustration is a mirror. Every disappointment is a lesson in where you still hand your freedom to the outside world. Study these moments. They are not interruptions to your practice. They are your practice. When something disturbs you, do not rush to solve the outer event first. Solve yourself first. The first question is not, how do I make this stop? The first question is, what judgment inside me is making this feel larger than it is? If you lose a job, do not first say the world is cruel. Ask whether your self-respect has disappeared with the contract. If someone insults you, do not first search for revenge. Ask whether their words can decide who you are. If the body hurts, do not first sink into fear. Ask whether pain has the authority to command your conduct. If your plan fails, do not first collapse into despair. Ask whether disappointment can justify a bad choice. This is how a disciplined mind works. It begins inward. It does not wait for the world to improve before it becomes wise. You must also learn to tolerate not knowing. The mind hates this. It wants guarantees. It wants a promise that good behavior will bring easy results. It wants a promise that honesty will be rewarded. It wants a promise that patience will be recognized. It wants a promise that effort will be matched. Life gives no such promise. The only promise worth trusting is that virtue remains good in every season. If you do what is right, you have already succeeded in the only sense that matters to reason. Whether the world applauds that is another matter. Whether the result arrives is another matter. Whether fortune smiles or turns away is another matter. You are not responsible for commanding the harvest. You are responsible for sowing well. The farmer who demands control over the weather is a fool. So is the soul that demands control over events. Sow well. That is enough. Do this in your relationships. Stop trying to control how others see you. Stop trying to force appreciation. Stop trying to extract certainty from people who cannot give it. Be fair. Be honest. Be steady. Speak clearly. Listen well. Set boundaries when needed. Offer kindness without making it a bargain, but do not tie your peace to their reaction. If they are unjust, remain just. If they are impatient, remain measured. If they are distant, remain self-respecting. If they leave, remain dignified. This does not make you cold. It makes you free. Dependence is not love. Dependence is fear dressed in affection. You do not become better by needing people to complete your mood. You become better by meeting them with a completed mind. Do this in your work. Do your part carefully. Do not let praise seduce you. Do not let criticism destroy you. If the work is yours, then give it your full attention. If the outcome belongs to chance, then hand the outcome to chance and keep your character. People waste entire lives chasing approval from places that cannot satisfy them. They become shapeless in the effort. One person wants them to be bold, another wants them to be quiet. One crowd wants them to perform, another wants them to conform. In the end, they become many versions of weakness. Do not live this way. Let reason be your standard. Let duty be your aim. Let integrity be your measure. Then whether you are seen or unseen, you remain the same person. That is rare. That is powerful. That is peace. Do this with your body. Your body has its own terms. It will be tired. It will be hungry. It will ache. It will age. It will not always obey. Do not hate it. Do not worship it. Train it. Care for it. Use it for the work of virtue. But do not confuse bodily comfort with inner security. A soft body often hides a soft will, but even a strong body can hide a weak mind. The point is not to become obsessed with physical toughness. The point is to stop being ruled by physical discomfort. Practice small hardness willingly. Rise when you could linger. Walk when you could sit. Eat a little less than desire asks when discipline is needed. Take the cold if it strengthens your endurance. Leave comfort before comfort leaves you unable to bear hardship. These practices are not punishments. They are reminders that you are not owned by appetite. A person who can endure small discomforts without complaint becomes harder to disturb when larger ones arrive. Do this with your emotions. An emotion is not a command. It is an event in the soul. Observe it before you obey it. Anger says act now. Fear says retreat now. Lust says indulge now. Shame says hide now. Pride says prove now. Grief says collapse now. But you are not required to move at the speed of every feeling. You can stand still long enough for reason to speak. That pause is sacred. In that pause you recover your rank as a human being. You cease to be a creature of impulse and become again a creature of judgment. The pause is brief. It is simple. It may be only one breath, but that breath can save your day. It can save your words. It can save your relationships. It can save your self-respect. Practice it until it becomes natural. Before you answer, before you send the message, before you make the purchase, before you chase the craving, before you lash out, before you beg, before you retreat. Pause, then ask what is mine to do in this moment if I am to remain just and reasonable. You must also learn to accept that the universe does not exist to affirm you. This is a hard truth for the ego and a freeing truth for the soul. You are not the center. You are a part. You are not given life so that every detail bends to your taste. You are given life so that you may use your reason well within the order that already exists. When you accept this, you stop making childish demands of reality. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, as if you were singled out for injustice by the structure of existence itself. Everyone faces loss. Everyone faces uncertainty. Everyone faces frustration. Everyone must choose how to live under these conditions. The question is not, why does hardship exist? The question is whether you will meet it with virtue or with collapse. Sometimes what you call misfortune is the very material needed for your improvement. A delay teaches patience. A disappointment teaches detachment. An insult teaches self-governance. A loss teaches humility, a burden teaches endurance, a failure teaches honest self-examination. If life removed every obstacle, you would remain childish. If life granted every wish, you would never learn command over desire. The roughness of life is not proof that you are abandoned. It is proof that you are being tested, not by a cruel master, but by the nature of reality itself. And the test is simple. Will you remain good when things do not go your way? Will you remain clear when others are unclear? Will you remain steady when your plans are shaken? Will you keep your soul upright when the ground moves beneath you? That is the examination. You need daily examination because memory is weak and self-deception is eager. At the end of the day, sit with yourself in silence. Review what happened. Where did you act with reason? Where did you surrender to impulse? Where did you complain? Where did you delay duty? Where did you speak too quickly? Where did you let fear lead? Where did you hold firm? Where did you keep faith with yourself? Do not write this review like a lawyer trying to defend a client. Write it like a judge who seeks truth. Be honest without theatrical guilt. The goal is not self-loathing. The goal is correction. Ask what judgment was mistaken. Ask what desire was excessive. Ask what duty was neglected. Ask what would be wiser tomorrow. Then close the day and sleep without fantasy. The examined life is not glamorous. It is exact. It is lean. It is powerful. Most people avoid it because they prefer comfort to clarity. But comfort without clarity is a poor bargain. It leaves the soul untrained and the life ungoverned. In the morning, do the opposite. Before the noise begins, prepare the mind for the day as a soldier prepares for work. Say to yourself that people will be impatient, people will be petty, people will misunderstand, the body will feel heaviness, the schedule may go wrong, someone may speak unfairly, some plan may fail, something may be lost, and when it happens you will not say, "I was not warned." You will say, "This is what I trained for." This is not pessimism, this is preparation. It is a kindness to yourself to expect the common facts of life instead of fantasies. If you are prepared for the roughness, you are less likely to be shattered by it. If you are not prepared, then ordinary difficulties will feel like disasters. A prepared mind is not shocked by life. It is ready to answer it. There is also a discipline in choosing less. The person who wants too much becomes easy to break. Wants spread like weeds. More comfort, more attention, more certainty, more praise, more control, more entertainment, more recognition, more freedom from discomfort. The more the wants grow, the less the soul can stand upright. This is why desire must be governed, not destroyed by force, but instructed by reason. Ask of every desire whether it belongs to virtue or vanity. Ask whether it helps you act justly. Ask whether it supports courage. Ask whether it deepens self-control. Ask whether it makes you more honest. If not, then it is not a desire to obey. It is a chain disguised as a pleasure. Cut it, refuse it, let it starve. This is not deprivation, this is liberation. You may still be tempted to think strength means never feeling shaken. That is not realistic and it is not required. The disciplined soul may feel the first sting of anger or fear or grief. What matters is what happens next. Do you let the feeling become law, or do you bring it before reason and test it? The goal is not to become a stone. The goal is to become a ruler of the inner life. A ruler does not deny that storms exist. A ruler orders the response. Likewise, you do not need to deny your pain. You need to govern your response to pain. You do not need to pretend loss is pleasant. You need to refuse to let loss destroy your virtue. You do not need to pretend pressure is easy. You need to stand under it without surrendering your judgment. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is freedom. The harshest prison is not external. It is the mind that cannot bear reality. The person who says this should not be happening is already in chains. The person who says this must go my way or I cannot be at peace has given the keys to circumstance. The person who says I will be good only if life is smooth has never learnt what goodness is. Virtue is not conditional. It is not a reward for comfort. It is a choice made under pressure. Therefore, do not ask for a life without resistance. Ask for the strength to use resistance well. Do not ask for a world that flatters you. Ask for a mind that sees clearly. Do not ask for ease. Ask for character. Ease may soften you. Character will sustain you. When you feel yourself becoming reactive, return immediately to what is up to you. This is the rescue rope. A delay at work is outside your control. Your response is not. A criticism you did not want is outside your control. Your reply is not. A body that feels tired is outside your control. Your decision to continue with seriousness is not. A friend who fails you is outside your control. Your refusal to become unjust is not. Every moment gives you this chance. You can waste it by staring at the outer event, or you can use it by returning to your own mind. That return is the act of sovereignty. It says, I have not surrendered. It says the world may press, but it will not command my moral life. It says, I still belong to reason. You will need patience with yourself, because training is not instant. Do not become angry that you have been weak. Anger at weakness is often just another form of vanity. It wants the self to be perfect without effort. That is not how human beings are made. The soul is trained by repetition, by correction, by memory, by setbacks, by return. Every time you catch yourself, you get another chance to strengthen the habit of attention. Every time you fail and then recover, you become less fragile. Every honest return counts. No good effort is wasted. The person who falls but stands again has progressed more than the person who never tests himself. So do not despair at imperfection. Despair belongs to the lazy mind that expects maturity without practice. You are learning to become the kind of person who does not hand over peace to accident. That kind of person is made over time. Let this principle reach every corner of your day. When you wake, do not ask what will happen to me. Ask what will I do with what happens. When you speak, do not ask how can I secure approval. Ask how can I speak justly. When you work, do not ask how can I avoid difficulty. Ask how can I perform well. When you are corrected, do not ask how can I protect my pride. Ask whether the correction is true. When you are praised, do not ask how can I preserve this admiration. Ask whether you still remain disciplined. When you are alone, do not ask how can I escape this silence. Ask whether I can use this silence to know myself better. When you are in pain, do not ask why me. Ask how shall I bear this without dishonor. This is the language of strength. It is plain, it is sober, it is enough. There will be moments when you fail to remember all this. In those moments, do not create a second failure by hating yourself. Return. The soul does not improve through melodrama. It improves through correction. Some days you will be unsettled. Some days you will overreact. Some days you will chase comfort. Some days you will place too much weight on what others think. Admit it, correct it, continue. The path is not broken by a stumble. It is broken by surrender. Do not surrender. Keep coming back to the distinction between what is yours and what is not. That distinction is the spine of your practice. Without it you fold. With it you stand. The end of this teaching is not passivity. It is active dignity. Once you know what belongs to you, you become more effective in action and less frantic in result. You stop wasting force on demands that reality will never obey. You stop arguing with the unchangeable. You stop begging life for permission to be calm. You become calm because you have taken your mind back. You become strong because you have stopped feeding the part of you that always wants more control than reason allows. You become trustworthy because your behavior is no longer decided by mood. You become difficult to break because your center is no longer outside yourself. Take this into the rest of your day. Every time you feel pressure, ask where it is coming from. Is it the event itself or your judgment about the event? Is it the outer thing or the claim you have made about it? Is it the loss itself or the story you are adding to the loss? Most suffering grows in the story. Cut the story back to the facts, then choose your response. This is not coldness, this is clarity. Facts first, judgment second, action third. That order protects you from needless torment. It keeps you from becoming a servant of your own interpretations. Build your life on what can be upheld in any condition. Integrity, self-command, truthfulness, courage, justice. These do not depend on luck. They do not depend on applause. They do not depend on ease. They depend on you. That is why they are safe ground. Everything else shifts. Everything else can be removed. Everything else can be delayed or denied. But if you keep virtue as your aim and reason as your guide, then no setback can strip you of the only treasure that is truly yours. You may lose possessions, you may lose opportunities, you may lose comfort, you may lose the certainty you once loved, but you do not have to lose yourself, not unless you cooperate with that loss. So now do not leave this as a pleasant thought. Make it a discipline. Today, when something resists, you remember that resistance is not an enemy, it is your teacher. Today, when someone upsets you, remember that their behavior does not own your soul. Today, when fear speaks, remember that fear is not authority. Today, when desire pulls, remember that not every urge deserves obedience. Today, when the body complains, remember that you are more than appetite and pain. Today, when the world changes, remember that your task is not to command the world, but to command yourself. That is enough work for a lifetime, and it is the work that makes a life worthy of respect. Do not waste your remaining hours pretending that control is wider than it is. The mind that tries to own everything owns nothing well. Narrow your command to what is truly yours, then rule there with firmness. Rule your judgments, rule your choices, rule your attention, rule your speech, rule your impulses, rule your response to praise and blame, rule your response to comfort and discomfort, rule your response to gain and loss, rule your response to being seen and being ignored, rule your response to success and failure. This is not a small kingdom. It is the only kingdom that matters. And if you govern it well, you will not be broken by life. You will be tested by life and refined by it. You will be struck and still remain just. You will be disappointed and still remain steady. You will be denied and still remain free. You will be human and still be strong. This is the work, not tomorrow, not after the next setback, not when you feel ready, now. Return your mind to what it can truly control. Return your life to reason. Return your desires to measure. Return your judgments to truth. Return your actions to virtue. Return again when you fail. Return again when you drift. Return again when the world tries to pull you outward. Keep returning until it becomes your nature. Then life may press. It may bend circumstances. It may strip comfort. It may disturb plans, but it will not break a mind that has learned where its power truly lives. Number 2. Govern your thoughts before they become your daily character. Your life is not first shaped by what happens around you. It is shaped by what happens within you before you even notice it. Long before your hands act, your thoughts have already chosen a direction. Long before your words leave your mouth, your judgments have already decided what those words will become. Every habit began as a repeated thought that was never questioned. Every destructive reaction was first welcomed as a reasonable conclusion. Every peaceful action was first accepted by a mind willing to examine itself before obeying itself. This is why the greatest battle you will ever fight is not against another person or against difficult circumstances. It is against the unnoticed thoughts that quietly govern your days while pretending to be truth. Most people never witness this process because they are too busy living inside it. A thought appears and they immediately call it reality. A feeling rises and they immediately call it certainty. An opinion forms and they immediately defend it as if their character depends upon never questioning it. They never stop long enough to ask whether the judgment is worthy of acceptance. They simply become whatever their unexamined thinking demands. The disciplined life begins the moment you refuse this automatic obedience. Your mind was not given to you so that every passing impression could become your master. It was given so that you could examine each impression with reason before allowing it to shape your conduct. This is the work that separates the governed soul from the governing soul. One is carried through life by impulse. The other walks through life by deliberate choice. Consider how often a single thought changes the course of an entire day. You wake feeling tired. Immediately the mind declares that the day will be difficult. Nothing has happened yet except the presence of fatigue, yet the judgment has already darkened your outlook. Soon every inconvenience confirms the story you accepted without examination. A delayed message becomes proof that people do not value you. A mistake becomes proof that you are failing. A disagreement becomes proof that the world is against you. The day did not create this suffering. The first judgment quietly built it. Reason demands something different. It asks you to pause before agreement. It reminds you that a first impression is only an invitation. You are never required to accept it as truth. Between the appearance of a thought and your agreement with it, there exists a space where freedom lives. If you neglect that space, your habits will decide your future. If you protect that space, your character will slowly become the work of conscious judgment rather than blind reaction. Pay attention to the language your own mind uses. Listen carefully when it says always or never. Listen when it says everyone rejects me or nothing ever works or I cannot bear this. These are not careful observations. They are exaggerated conclusions produced by an undisciplined mind searching for certainty where none exists. The rational soul does not rush toward extremes. It patiently asks whether the judgment matches reality. Most suffering grows larger because exaggerated thinking is left unchallenged. You cannot prevent thoughts from appearing. They arrive as naturally as changing weather. But you are responsible for deciding which thoughts deserve residence within your character. Imagine opening the door of your home to every stranger who passes by. You would not do it because you understand the value of careful judgment. Yet many people offer their minds to every fearful thought, every angry assumption, and every anxious prediction without the slightest examination. They protect their possessions more carefully than they protect their own reason. Your character is built through repeated agreement. Every thought you consistently approve becomes easier to approve tomorrow. Every judgment you repeatedly question becomes weaker. This is why discipline begins long before visible behavior. It begins with quiet decisions made where no audience exists. Every moment you refuse to cooperate with bitterness, you weaken its influence. Every moment you refuse to cooperate with resentment, you strengthen your freedom. Character is not suddenly transformed by one dramatic event. It is patiently shaped through thousands of unnoticed approvals and refusals. When someone speaks harshly to you, your first impression may be anger. This is ordinary. The question is not whether anger appeared. The question is whether anger deserves authority. Before answering another person, you must first answer your own judgment. Ask yourself, what exactly has happened? Have you truly been harmed, or has your pride simply been disturbed? Has your ability to choose what is right been taken away, or has only your comfort been challenged? These questions return authority to reason instead of impulse. Many people spend years trying to change difficult people while neglecting the one mind they actually possess. They replay conversations, repeatedly searching for better arguments. They imagine different outcomes that no longer exist. They carry old words into new mornings. Their thoughts become prisoners of yesterday, while today's responsibilities remain untouched. A disciplined mind refuses this waste. Once an event has passed, its only remaining value lies in the lesson it offers. Everything else belongs to memory, not to present duty. Observe how quickly complaint becomes identity. At first, it is simply a habit of speech. Soon it becomes a habit of thinking. Finally, it becomes the lens through which every experience is interpreted. The person no longer notices beauty because complaint has trained attention toward deficiency alone. This does not happen in one day. It happens through repeated agreement with negative judgments that were never examined. If you wish to become stronger, you must interrupt this process before it hardens into character. Begin each morning by preparing your thinking before entering your tasks. Sit quietly for a few moments without reaching for distraction. Ask yourself what kind of mind you intend to carry through the day. Remind yourself that unexpected difficulties will arrive because they belong to human life. Resolve in advance that inconvenience will not receive immediate agreement from your judgment. Promise yourself that every impression will first be examined before it is believed. This simple preparation changes the quality of your entire day because your attention has already been placed under reason rather than chance. Throughout the day, create small moments of interruption. Whenever your emotions begin rising, ask a single question: what judgment is producing this reaction? Do not search outside yourself first, search within. Perhaps you expected another person to behave exactly as you wished. Perhaps you assumed success should come easily. Perhaps you believed discomfort should never visit your life. Every emotional disturbance points toward an underlying judgment waiting to be examined. The disturbance is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Do not become discouraged when you discover flawed thinking within yourself. Honest discovery is progress. Hidden error is dangerous because it quietly governs your choices without resistance. Visible error has already begun losing its power because reason has finally noticed it. Each time you expose an unhealthy judgment, you weaken its influence over tomorrow. The disciplined mind also guards against pleasant illusions. Not every agreeable thought deserves acceptance. Vanity often disguises itself as confidence. Pride often disguises itself as self-respect. Laziness often disguises itself as waiting for the perfect moment. The mind enjoys telling comforting stories because comfort requires less effort than truth. Reason asks a different question. It asks whether the thought makes you more just, more disciplined, more honest, and more self-controlled. If it does not, then no matter how attractive it appears, it does not deserve your agreement. Pay close attention to moments when you begin blaming circumstances for repeated failures. Circumstances influence opportunities, but they do not determine character. If your patience disappears every time conditions become uncomfortable, then the true problem is not the discomfort. It is the judgment that comfort is necessary before virtue can exist. Once this mistaken belief is exposed, your training can begin. You stop waiting for easier conditions and start strengthening your response within present conditions. There is great freedom in refusing immediate certainty. Instead of declaring that someone intended to insult you, ask whether you truly know their intention. Instead of deciding that failure defines your future, ask whether one event possesses such authority. Instead of assuming every fear predicts reality, ask whether fear has earned your trust before. A thoughtful mind moves carefully because it understands how often first impressions deceive. Guard your attention with the same seriousness that a careful craftsman guards his finest tools. Attention determines what grows within you. If your attention constantly feeds resentment, then resentment becomes familiar. If your attention repeatedly returns to gratitude for the opportunity to practice virtue, then steadiness becomes familiar. Whatever repeatedly receives your attention gradually becomes your character. This quiet law operates every day whether you notice it or not. At the end of each evening, review your thinking rather than merely your accomplishments. Ask yourself which judgments served reason and which served impulse. Recall moments where unnecessary worry captured your attention. Notice where pride demanded recognition. Notice where fear exaggerated future difficulties. Do not condemn yourself. Correct yourself. Tomorrow offers another opportunity to govern the same territory with greater wisdom. You will gradually notice that external events lose much of their power to disturb you. This does not happen because life becomes easier. It happens because your judgments become more disciplined. The same criticism that once ruined your day now becomes material for reflection. The same delay that once produced anger now becomes an opportunity to practice patience. The same uncertainty that once produced panic now becomes another reminder that your task is wise action rather than perfect prediction. This transformation cannot be borrowed from books or speeches alone. It must become a daily exercise. Every conversation becomes training. Every disappointment becomes training. Every success becomes training, because success also tests whether vanity will replace humility. Every quiet moment becomes training, because silence reveals thoughts that constant distraction keeps hidden. The examined mind uses every circumstance to strengthen reason. There will be days when your old habits return with surprising force. Do not mistake this for failure. Habits formed over many years rarely disappear after a few days of discipline. Meet them with patience and firmness. Every time you refuse automatic agreement, you strengthen a better habit. Every return to careful judgment builds a more reliable character. Persistence matters more than perfection, because character is formed through repeated practice rather than isolated victories. Remember that your greatest responsibility each day is not controlling every event, but governing the quality of your own thinking. A clear mind produces careful speech. Careful speech supports honorable action. Honorable action gradually becomes trustworthy character. Character then shapes the course of an entire life. This chain always begins with thought. So before your thoughts become words, examine them. Before they become actions, question them. Before they become habits, discipline them. Before they become your character, bring them before reason with complete honesty. Refuse to allow impulse to write the story of your life. Let careful judgment become your constant companion. Let truth become more valuable than comfort. Let reason become stronger than habit. When you govern your thoughts with unwavering discipline, you no longer drift wherever emotion pulls you. You begin living deliberately. Your days gain order. Your choices gain integrity. Your relationships gain stability. Your mind becomes a place of steady judgment rather than restless reaction. That is where genuine strength begins. That is where lasting freedom is quietly built, one examined thought at a time. Number 3. Strengthen your reason above every passing feeling without hesitation. Your feelings speak first, but they were never meant to speak last. This is the mistake that quietly governs countless lives. A feeling rises, and before reason has the opportunity to examine it, a decision has already been made. Anger becomes speech. Fear becomes retreat. Desire becomes action. Discouragement becomes surrender. By the end of the day, a person believes that circumstances controlled them, when in truth they simply allowed passing feelings to occupy the seat that belongs only to reason. The strongest person is not the one who no longer feels. The strongest person is the one who no longer mistakes every feeling for a command. Look carefully at your own experience. How many choices have you made simply because you felt like making them? How many duties have you postponed because motivation failed to appear? How many words have you spoken because irritation demanded expression? How many opportunities have you abandoned because fear painted failure more vividly than possibility? These moments seem small while they occur, yet together they build an entire way of living. A life directed by changing feelings can never become stable, because feelings themselves were never designed to remain stable. They move as quickly as the wind changes direction. If your character follows every movement, your life will become equally restless. Reason exists for a higher purpose. It was not given to decorate your thoughts with clever ideas. It was given to govern your conduct. It examines before accepting. It measures before deciding. It asks whether an action serves virtue rather than temporary comfort. Whenever reason yields to emotion without examination, your freedom quietly disappears. You begin living according to whatever feeling happens to arrive first. This is not self-governance, it is quiet surrender. Many people confuse intensity with truth. They believe that because a feeling is powerful, it must also be accurate. Yet strength of emotion proves nothing about the quality of judgment beneath it. Fear can be overwhelming while being completely mistaken. Anger can feel justified while resting upon false assumptions. Excitement can promise happiness while leading directly toward regret. The wise mind refuses to measure truth by emotional force. It measures truth by careful examination. Notice how quickly your inner world attempts to persuade you. A difficult conversation approaches, and anxiety begins describing every possible disaster. The body becomes tense. The imagination becomes busy. Soon you no longer distinguish between possibility and certainty. Without realizing it, you begin obeying predictions that have never occurred. Days are spent preparing for suffering that never arrives. The event itself was never the prison. Your unquestioned acceptance of fearful impressions built the prison long before reality had spoken. The disciplined soul interrupts this process. It refuses to become a servant of emotional urgency. When uneasiness appears, it does not immediately seek escape. It first asks whether reason agrees with the direction fear recommends. Sometimes caution is appropriate, often it is not. The answer cannot be discovered by listening more closely to fear. It is discovered by listening more faithfully to reason. There will be moments when your emotions demand immediate satisfaction. Anger will insist that silence is weakness. Pride will insist that admitting fault diminishes your worth. Desire will insist that restraint is unnecessary. Impatience will insist that waiting is unbearable. In these moments, remember that feelings speak the language of immediacy while reason speaks the language of permanence. One seeks relief for the present moment. The other protects the whole direction of your life. Choose the voice concerned with your character rather than your comfort. You may believe that following your emotions allows you to live honestly. Yet honesty is not measured by the speed with which you express every internal movement. Genuine honesty requires examining whether those movements deserve expression at all. Not every impulse reveals your true self. Many impulses reveal only habits that have remained untrained. Your task is not to display every emotion. Your task is to cultivate a mind capable of deciding which emotions deserve action and which deserve quiet observation. This discipline becomes especially important during success. Pleasant emotions can mislead just as easily as painful ones. Praise may tempt you to value approval above integrity. Achievement may tempt you to believe that excellence excuses arrogance. Comfort may tempt you to abandon practices that built your strength. Fortune often weakens those who stop examining themselves simply because circumstances temporarily favor them. Reason remains steady whether life offers abundance or limitation because its standard never changes. Begin your morning by strengthening your governing faculty before the world begins making demands upon it. Spend several quiet moments preparing your mind for disciplined judgment. Remind yourself that feelings will certainly appear throughout the day. They will invite agreement with great confidence. Promise yourself that none of them will receive immediate authority. Let your first commitment each morning be loyalty to reason rather than loyalty to emotional convenience. As your day unfolds, practice delaying your first reaction. This delay need not be long. Even a brief pause creates space for examination. During that pause, ask what kind of person this response would gradually shape you into if repeated for many years. Every action trains the character. Every repeated response becomes easier with time. A single impatient reply may appear insignificant, yet repeated daily it forms a habit that eventually governs your relationships. A single disciplined silence may also appear insignificant, yet repeated faithfully it builds remarkable self-command. Your feelings often disguise themselves as urgent necessities. You may tell yourself that you must answer immediately. You may believe you must defend your reputation without delay. You may feel compelled to correct every misunderstanding. Pause before accepting such claims. Many situations lose their emotional force simply because reason was given enough time to examine them. Time often exposes what impulse tries desperately to hide. Observe those moments when disappointment enters your life. Perhaps an opportunity disappears without warning. Perhaps another person fails to meet your expectations. Perhaps careful effort receives little recognition. The emotional response may insist that everything has been wasted. Yet reason asks a different question. It asks whether your commitment to virtue depended upon receiving a particular outcome. If your answer is yes, then your actions were quietly serving reward rather than excellence. True discipline acts rightly because right action remains valuable regardless of external success. You must also become suspicious of emotional stories that place all responsibility outside yourself. Whenever resentment becomes your constant companion, ask whether your own judgments have contributed to its growth. Whenever discouragement settles deeply within you, ask whether you have been measuring your worth by results instead of character. Whenever envy appears, ask whether you have forgotten that another person's fortune cannot diminish your opportunity to practice virtue. These questions are uncomfortable because they remove excuses, yet freedom begins where excuses end. Train yourself to distinguish between experiencing an emotion and becoming identified with it. You may experience sadness without concluding that your entire life has become hopeless. You may experience frustration without deciding that everyone opposes you. You may experience fear without declaring yourself incapable. Feelings visit the mind. They need not become permanent residents. Reason keeps the door open so that passing emotions continue their journey instead of building a home within your identity. Throughout history, many lives have been quietly directed by the pursuit of emotional comfort. People avoid necessary conversations because discomfort feels unpleasant. They postpone meaningful work because effort feels demanding. They remain trapped in familiar habits because uncertainty feels threatening. Their lives gradually become smaller, not because opportunity disappeared, but because feelings were allowed to determine the boundaries of action. A disciplined person refuses such limitation. Duty remains worthy even when emotions hesitate. When another person's behavior disturbs you, do not first examine them. Examine your own response. Their conduct belongs to their character. Your judgment belongs to yours. If someone acts unfairly, you still possess the freedom to answer with justice. If someone speaks carelessly, you still possess the ability to respond with measured words. If someone chooses dishonesty, you are under no obligation to imitate them. Every encounter presents an opportunity to strengthen reason by refusing emotional imitation. There is also danger in becoming attached to pleasant emotional states. Many people believe peace depends upon always feeling calm. Therefore, they fear any disturbance that enters the mind. Yet, emotional calm cannot be permanently guaranteed. Life naturally presents uncertainty, loss, fatigue, and unexpected change. If your peace depends upon constant pleasant feelings, your peace will disappear whenever conditions shift. Build your stability upon reason instead. Reason remains available whether emotions are peaceful or unsettled. Practice speaking less when emotions are strongest. Words released under emotional pressure often carry consequences that remain long after the feeling itself has faded. Silence creates room for judgment. During that silence, ask whether your intended words serve truth, justice, and self-control. If they merely promise temporary satisfaction, they are too expensive. A brief emotional victory often costs lasting peace. Likewise, practice delaying important decisions whenever your inner state becomes turbulent. Joy may encourage reckless confidence. Fear may encourage unnecessary retreat. Anger may encourage irreversible choices. Give reason sufficient time to regain clear vision before deciding matters that shape your future. Patience is not weakness. It is respect for careful judgment. Each evening, review moments when emotions attempted to lead your actions. Do not merely remember what happened. Investigate why it happened. Which feeling demanded immediate obedience? Which belief gave that feeling authority? Which opportunity for disciplined judgment was overlooked? This daily examination transforms ordinary experience into lasting instruction. Without reflection, mistakes become habits. With reflection, mistakes become teachers. You will gradually notice that emotional storms lose much of their power once they encounter a mind trained to question them. They still arrive, yet they no longer command immediate obedience. You begin observing them with increasing clarity. Instead of saying, "I must act because I feel this," you begin asking whether acting would honor the person you seek to become. This single change quietly transforms every area of life. Relationships improve because your words become less reactive. Work improves because discipline replaces fluctuating motivation. Difficulties become more manageable because discomfort no longer automatically produces complaint. Success becomes safer because praise no longer governs your identity. Even solitude becomes richer because your own thoughts become companions worthy of trust rather than constant sources of disturbance. Understand that reason is strengthened exactly as the body is strengthened. It grows through repeated exercise under resistance. Every temptation to react becomes an opportunity to practice restraint. Every invitation towards self-pity becomes an opportunity to practice gratitude for present duty. Every moment of uncertainty becomes an opportunity to practice confidence in virtuous action rather than guaranteed outcomes. The difficulty itself becomes the training ground. Do not expect this discipline to develop without effort. Years of emotional habit will naturally resist correction. There will be occasions when you speak too quickly or surrender to irritation before recognizing what has happened. Meet such moments honestly. Refuse both denial and despair. Learn from them. Return immediately to the work. Progress belongs to those who continue examining themselves without becoming discouraged by imperfection. Remember that your purpose is not emotional numbness. A person without feeling has not achieved wisdom. A person who has learned to place feeling beneath reason has achieved something far greater. Such a person still experiences affection, sorrow, gratitude, concern, and joy. Yet none of these emotions are permitted to overthrow sound judgment. They enrich life without governing it. As this practice deepens, you begin discovering a remarkable kind of freedom. External events still change, fortune still rises and falls, other people remain unpredictable, your body still experiences fatigue and discomfort. Yet your inner life becomes increasingly ordered because its direction no longer depends upon whatever emotion happens to visit first. Stability emerges not from controlling circumstances, but from consistently choosing reason above passing feeling. Carry this discipline into every ordinary hour. When praise arrives, remain humble. When criticism arrives, remain thoughtful. When disappointment arrives, remain faithful to your duty. When pleasure arrives, remain moderate. When difficulty arrives, remain steadfast. In every condition, let reason examine before action follows. One day you will realize that the greatest victory was never over another person or over changing circumstances. It was over the quiet habit of believing that every emotion deserved immediate obedience. From that victory comes genuine self-command. From self-command comes reliable character. From reliable character comes a life that remains upright through both comfort and hardship. Strength does not begin when feelings disappear. Strength begins the moment reason quietly takes its rightful place as the faithful ruler of your inner life, and every passing feeling willingly becomes its servant rather than its master. Number 4. Endure every hardship with quiet courage and steady self-command. Hardship is not the moment your character is taken from you. Hardship is the moment your character is revealed to you. When life becomes difficult, you finally meet the person you have been training every ordinary day. If your mind has been fed by complaint, hardship will uncover complaint. If your mind has been strengthened by discipline, hardship will uncover discipline. The difficult hour does not create your inner life, it exposes what has quietly been growing within it for years. That is why you must stop fearing adversity and begin using it as the clearest teacher you will ever encounter. Many people believe suffering begins with pain itself. It does not. Pain belongs to the body and to the ordinary conditions of human existence. Suffering grows when the mind declares that pain should never have arrived. The wound may be unavoidable, but the rebellion against reality is chosen. The moment you demand that life remove every burden before you can remain steady, you hand your peace to circumstances that have never promised to obey you. Look honestly at the moments that have tested you most. Perhaps you lost something valuable. Perhaps trust was broken. Perhaps your plans dissolved after years of effort. Perhaps your body became weaker than you expected. In each of these moments, there were two struggles unfolding at once. One belonged to the event itself. The other belonged to your judgment about the event. Most people spend all their energy fighting the first, while ignoring the second. Yet the second struggle determines whether hardship becomes corruption or growth. There is no life free from difficulty. Every person receives uncertainty. Every person receives disappointment. Every person eventually faces loss, fatigue, misunderstanding, and limitation. The question has never been whether hardship will arrive. The question has always been whether your governing mind will remain faithful to virtue when it does. If your peace depends upon favorable conditions, then peace will always remain fragile. If your character depends upon comfort, then character will disappear whenever comfort leaves. Quiet courage begins with accepting this truth without bitterness. You are not being singled out because your path contains obstacles. You are participating in the common condition of being human. Once this becomes clear, resentment loses much of its force. You stop asking why difficulty has entered your life and begin asking how this moment allows you to practice justice, patience, courage, moderation, and wisdom more faithfully than yesterday. Hardship often tempts the mind toward dramatic conclusions. A single failure becomes evidence that nothing will succeed. One betrayal becomes proof that trust is impossible. One setback becomes a reason to abandon honorable effort. These conclusions do not arise from reality itself. They arise from a judgment that has outrun reason. The disciplined person refuses to let one event define the whole course of life. Every circumstance deserves to be examined according to what it truly is, not according to the fears it awakens. Notice how easily discomfort persuades you to abandon your principles. When your body becomes tired, honesty suddenly feels inconvenient. When progress slows, discipline begins to look unnecessary. When criticism appears, kindness becomes difficult to maintain. This is why hardship deserves respect. It reveals whether your commitment to virtue was genuine or merely dependent upon pleasant conditions. Anyone can appear patient when nothing challenges them. Anyone can appear disciplined when everything unfolds according to plan. Character proves itself when convenience disappears. You must therefore stop treating difficulty as an interruption to your practice. Difficulty is your practice. Every demanding conversation invites self-command. Every delay invites patience. Every unexpected burden invites endurance. Every disappointment invites a deeper commitment to acting well regardless of reward. The day that feels most difficult is often the day that offers the greatest opportunity to strengthen your inner life. Begin each morning by preparing your expectations instead of protecting your comfort. Tell yourself that today's events may not unfold according to your preferences. People may disappoint you. Circumstances may resist your plans. Fatigue may accompany your efforts. None of these possibilities should surprise you because they belong to the ordinary movement of life. Preparation does not remove hardship, but it removes unnecessary shock. The prepared mind wastes little energy arguing with what it already understood was possible. As the day unfolds, practice meeting each challenge without adding unnecessary judgment. When inconvenience arrives, observe your first impulse carefully. The mind often rushes to declare that the situation is unbearable. Pause before agreeing. Ask whether your ability to choose what is honorable has actually been taken away. In nearly every case, you will discover that your essential freedom remains untouched. The event may limit your comfort, but it has not stolen your capacity for virtue. Steady self-command is not loud. It does not seek admiration. It does not announce its endurance to the world. It quietly governs speech when anger demands expression. It quietly governs action when discouragement urges surrender. It quietly governs attention when fear attempts to scatter the mind across imagined disasters. This kind of strength rarely attracts applause because much of its work happens where no audience exists. Yet this hidden discipline forms the foundation of every honorable life. There will be moments when your emotions insist that endurance has reached its limit. They will whisper that enough effort has been given. They will encourage resentment toward responsibilities that once felt meaningful. They will persuade you that temporary relief deserves greater loyalty than lasting integrity. At such moments, remember that feelings measure the present moment, while reason measures the direction of an entire life. A brief surrender to comfort may produce lasting regret. A brief endurance of difficulty may produce lasting character. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that hardship excuses poor conduct. They imagine that because they are under pressure, impatience becomes acceptable. Because they have suffered, dishonesty becomes understandable. Because they have been treated unfairly, injustice becomes permissible. This thinking quietly destroys character. Another person's wrongdoing never grants permission for you to abandon your own commitment to virtue. Your conduct remains your responsibility regardless of the conduct surrounding you. Examine how often complaint quietly increases the weight of your burdens. A difficult task is already demanding. Repeating to yourself that it should not exist doubles the struggle. Complaining does not remove difficulty, it merely adds resistance to what must already be faced. Quiet acceptance, by contrast, conserves energy for useful action. Acceptance does not mean approving of every event. It means refusing to waste strength fighting realities that cannot be changed. Practice reducing every challenge to the duty immediately before you. When the mind stares too far ahead, hardship appears endless. When attention returns to the present responsibility, clarity returns as well. Ask only what honorable action belongs to this moment. Complete that action carefully. Then meet the next. Strength is rarely built by carrying the entire future at once. It is built by governing the present choice with consistency. Your body may sometimes become exhausted before your purpose does. Respect its limits without surrendering your discipline. Care for it responsibly, yet never allow physical discomfort alone to determine moral decisions. A weary body can still produce honest speech. A tired mind can still refuse cruelty. Limited strength can still choose fairness. External weakness does not require internal collapse. Hardship also exposes hidden attachments. When something is taken from you, notice what part of yourself feels threatened. If recognition disappears, does your worth disappear with it? If wealth decreases, does your integrity decrease as well? If plans fail, does your commitment to virtue fail beside them? Every loss reveals where your identity has quietly settled. Let these moments teach you to place your deepest confidence only where fortune cannot reach. Throughout your day, practice welcoming small inconveniences without irritation. Wait patiently without searching for distraction. Accept ordinary discomfort without immediate complaint. Finish demanding work before seeking entertainment. Speak kindly when your mood prefers silence. These small exercises prepare your character for greater trials. A person who cannot bear ordinary inconvenience will struggle greatly when serious hardship arrives. Daily discipline quietly expands the soul's capacity for endurance. When another person witnesses your composure during adversity, they may believe you simply possess unusual strength. They do not see the countless private decisions that created such steadiness. They do not see the mornings spent preparing the mind. They do not see the evenings spent correcting mistaken judgments. They do not see the repeated choice to remain faithful during ordinary frustrations. Public resilience is always built through private discipline. There will be seasons when progress appears invisible. You may practice patience for months without seeing immediate results. You may continue acting honorably while receiving little appreciation. Do not mistake the absence of visible reward for the absence of growth. Character develops beneath the surface long before it becomes obvious to others. Just as roots deepen quietly before branches expand, your inner life strengthens through faithful repetition before outward confidence fully appears. Each evening, examine not how much hardship you encountered, but how faithfully you responded to it. Ask whether you remained truthful when honesty became expensive. Ask whether your words reflected self-command when emotions became intense. Ask whether you allowed disappointment to shape your conduct more than reason. Every sincere answer becomes instruction for tomorrow. Self-examination transforms each difficult day into material for wisdom. Resist the temptation to compare your burdens with those of others. Such comparison rarely produces virtue. Sometimes it creates pride, sometimes it creates self-pity. Neither strengthens the soul. Your task is not to measure whose hardships are greater. Your task is to govern your own response with excellence. The discipline required for your present circumstances is sufficient work for one lifetime. You will eventually discover that courage is quieter than most people imagine. It is found in returning to responsibilities after failure. It is found in speaking truth without hostility. It is found in remaining fair toward those who misunderstand you. It is found in refusing to abandon honorable conduct because life has become difficult. Courage does not always appear in dramatic moments. More often it appears in ordinary faithfulness repeated over many years. When fortune changes unexpectedly, remember that your greatest possession has never been external security. It has always been the ability to choose your response according to reason. Wealth may disappear, health may weaken, relationships may change, opportunities may pass. None of these events possess the authority to compel dishonesty, bitterness, or cowardice. That authority can only be surrendered from within. You may wonder whether such discipline removes sorrow entirely. It does not. Loss still carries pain. Separation still brings grief. Uncertainty still visits every thoughtful person. The disciplined soul does not deny these realities. It simply refuses to let sorrow become an excuse for abandoning wisdom. Tears may appear without destroying self-command. Grief may exist alongside dignity. Pain may accompany steadfastness. Human feeling and disciplined character are not enemies when reason remains their guide. As your practice deepens, you will notice that hardship slowly changes its meaning. What once seemed like punishment begins to resemble instruction. Every challenge reveals another opportunity to strengthen patience, honesty, moderation, or courage. The event itself remains difficult, yet its purpose within your character becomes increasingly clear. You stop asking how quickly discomfort can disappear and begin asking how faithfully virtue can endure while it remains. Carry this understanding into every demanding season. When plans collapse, preserve your integrity. When others disappoint you, preserve your fairness. When uncertainty grows, preserve your judgment. When fatigue settles over your body, Preserve your commitment to worthy action. Let every hardship find you governed rather than scattered, thoughtful rather than reactive, disciplined rather than defeated. The measure of your life will never be the number of difficulties you escaped. It will be the quality of the character you preserved while passing through them. Anyone can remain pleasant when nothing is tested. The truly disciplined person remains devoted to virtue when circumstances invite compromise. That quiet devotion cannot be purchased by comfort or granted by fortune. It is earned through daily self-command exercised under pressure. So when the next hardship arrives, do not immediately ask how to remove it. Ask how to meet it without surrendering the person you are striving to become. Let each challenge remind you that your highest responsibility remains unchanged. Govern your judgments carefully. Govern your speech wisely. Govern your actions honorably. Endure what must be endured without resentment. Continue what must be done without complaint. Hold firmly to reason when circumstances become uncertain. In doing so, you will discover that true strength is not the absence of hardship. True strength is the steady soul that refuses to abandon virtue no matter how demanding the road becomes. Number 5. Release every expectation that depends upon other people completely. Much of the weight you carry was never placed upon your shoulders by life itself. You placed it there each time you expected another person to think as you think, value what you value, speak when you wanted them to speak, remain when you wanted them to remain, understand what you never clearly expressed, or reward you exactly as you imagined. You called these expectations reasonable, yet each one quietly handed your peace to another human being. The moment your inner stability depends upon another person's choices, you have surrendered the one thing that was always meant to remain under your own governance. Look honestly at the disappointments that have shaped your life. How many were born from events alone, and how many grew from silent expectations that reality never promised to fulfill? Someone failed to appreciate your effort. Someone misunderstood your intentions. Someone changed their mind. Someone forgot a promise. Someone acted according to their own fears instead of your hopes. The pain you experienced was not created only by their actions. It was enlarged by the belief that they were required to become the person you imagined they should be. This does not mean people should abandon justice, honesty, or kindness. Those remain worthy in every circumstance. It means you must stop confusing your hope for another person's conduct with your authority over it. Hope is natural. Control is an illusion. When these two become confused, resentment quietly enters the soul. You begin measuring your peace by decisions that have never belonged to you. Every human being possesses a mind that chooses according to its own judgments. Some choose wisely, some choose carelessly, some remain faithful, others become unreliable, some pursue virtue, others pursue comfort or advantage. Their decisions arise from their own understanding, their own habits and their own character. You may influence them through good example and honest speech, but you cannot govern the conclusions they ultimately reach. To demand otherwise is to demand ownership over another person's inner life, and such ownership has never been granted to anyone. Consider how often your emotional balance changes because of another person's opinion. A compliment lifts your confidence. A criticism unsettles your entire day. Approval creates energy. Rejection creates hesitation. Without noticing, you have allowed another person's judgment to become more powerful than your own examination of yourself. This is not freedom. It is dependence disguised as sensitivity. Your worth cannot safely rest upon praise because praise belongs to another person's mouth. Your peace cannot safely rest upon admiration because admiration belongs to another person's judgment. Your direction cannot safely rest upon agreement because agreement belongs to another person's understanding. If you build your inner life upon what belongs to someone else, instability becomes unavoidable. The disciplined person learns to welcome goodwill without becoming dependent upon it. Appreciation is pleasant, but it is never necessary for acting honorably. Respect from others is valuable, yet it cannot replace self-respect earned through virtuous conduct. Recognition may arrive or it may never come. Neither possibility changes your duty. Your responsibility remains exactly the same whether anyone notices it or not. Many relationships become burdensome because expectations quietly replace virtue. Instead of asking whether they themselves are acting with justice and patience, people constantly evaluate whether others are meeting imagined obligations. Every conversation becomes a hidden transaction. Every kindness secretly expects repayment. Every sacrifice silently demands acknowledgement. When gratitude fails to appear, bitterness begins growing beneath the surface. True generosity never calculates future rewards. It acts because virtue itself is sufficient reason for action. If you choose kindness only to secure appreciation, then your kindness has become a bargain rather than an expression of character. When appreciation does not arrive, disappointment exposes the hidden expectation that was attached from the beginning. This is why you must examine your motives before examining another person's response. Ask yourself whether you acted according to reason or according to a desire for recognition. If your conduct was honorable, then you have already achieved what belonged to you. Whatever follows belongs to another person's freedom, not yours. There will be moments when people misunderstand your intentions despite your honesty. They may interpret fairness as weakness. They may mistake restraint for indifference. They may criticize actions that were guided by sincere judgment. Resist the urge to shape your character around every changing opinion. Public approval changes as quickly as circumstances. Virtue remains steady because it answers to reason rather than popularity. One of the greatest sources of unnecessary suffering is the belief that everyone should recognize your efforts exactly as you do. You remember every sacrifice you made. You remember every inconvenience you accepted. You remember every silent act of loyalty. When others fail to acknowledge these things, disappointment appears. Yet consider this carefully. Did you perform these actions because they were right or because you expected permanent gratitude? The answer reveals whether your actions served virtue or expectation. This discipline becomes especially important within close relationships. Affection should never become possession. Care should never become control. Love guided by reason seeks another person's good without demanding authority over their choices. You may advise wisely, you may speak honestly, you may encourage patiently. Beyond that, another person's decisions remain their own responsibility. Trying to govern another soul will only exhaust your own. Each morning, remind yourself that everyone you encounter carries unseen struggles, mistaken judgments, and unfinished discipline. Some will act thoughtfully, others will act impulsively. Some will disappoint you without intending harm, others will knowingly choose selfishness. None of these possibilities should surprise you because every person is still learning how to govern themselves. Expecting flawless conduct from imperfect people guarantees repeated frustration. Preparation protects the mind from unnecessary shock. When difficult behavior appears, you no longer react as though something impossible has occurred. Instead, you calmly recognize that another person has acted according to the present condition of their character. Their action deserves an appropriate response, but not emotional surrender. Whenever someone behaves unfairly, resist making their conduct the center of your attention. Turn inward first. Ask what kind of response reason requires from you. Perhaps firmness is necessary. Perhaps patience is appropriate. Perhaps silence preserves greater wisdom than argument. Whatever the answer, let it arise from deliberate judgment rather than emotional retaliation. Do not confuse acceptance with approval. Accepting that another person possesses freedom does not mean approving every decision they make. You may clearly recognize injustice while refusing to become unjust yourself. You may acknowledge dishonesty without allowing bitterness to occupy your own heart. You may set necessary boundaries without abandoning goodwill. Self-command remains possible even when others abandon theirs. Notice how frequently the mind invents stories about what other people should have done. They should have understood me. They should have apologized. They should have remained loyal. They should have recognized my effort. These thoughts may continue for years without changing a single event. Meanwhile, your own character waits unattended. The more attention given to another person's obligations, the less attention remains for your own. Bring your focus back to the only place where meaningful improvement can occur. Ask whether your own words reflected honesty. Ask whether your own actions reflected justice. Ask whether your own expectations remained within the limits of reason. This examination always produces growth because it concerns what genuinely belongs to your care. Practice entering conversations without demanding specific outcomes. Speak truthfully because truth deserves expression. Listen carefully because understanding deserves effort. Act respectfully because respect reflects your character. Then allow the conversation to unfold according to realities beyond your command. If agreement follows, receive it calmly. If disagreement remains, preserve your composure equally. Many people exhaust themselves, attempting to manage how they appear in the minds of others. They endlessly adjust their personality, suppress honest convictions, and pursue constant approval. In doing so, they lose the ability to recognize themselves. A life devoted to managing impressions slowly abandons integrity for acceptance. The disciplined person refuses such exchange. Better to remain faithful to reason than endlessly chase changing opinions. Throughout the day, observe moments when disappointment begins forming. Before blaming another person, identify the expectation hidden beneath the emotion. Perhaps you expected immediate understanding. Perhaps you expected fairness from someone lacking discipline. Perhaps you expected consistency from someone governed by impulse. Once the expectation becomes visible, ask whether it ever truly belonged within your control. This simple question dissolves much unnecessary suffering. Your peace becomes remarkably stable when it no longer depends upon another person's gratitude, affection, praise, agreement, or consistency. Relationships continue, responsibilities remain, love deepens. Yet none of these require emotional dependence. You become capable of offering your best without demanding certainty in return. This is not emotional distance. It is emotional freedom grounded in reason. At times you will experience betrayal. Promises may be broken despite your trust. Loyalty may disappear without warning. Such moments are undeniably painful. Yet even here your greatest responsibility remains unchanged. Another person's failure does not determine your own character. Their dishonesty cannot compel your dishonesty. Their injustice cannot require your bitterness. Preserve your principles precisely when others abandon theirs. Train yourself to appreciate people without making them the foundation of your inner stability. Be grateful for friendship while recognizing that friendship belongs to two free minds. Be thankful for affection while understanding that affection cannot be commanded. Enjoy companionship while remembering that every human relationship remains subject to change. Gratitude welcomes what is present without demanding permanent possession. Each evening, examine where your expectations governed your emotions. Recall moments when another person's behavior disturbed your peace. Ask what invisible demand existed beneath your disappointment. Then ask whether that demand concerned something truly under your authority. This practice gradually teaches the mind to distinguish between reasonable hopes and unreasonable dependence. You will begin noticing that your interactions become calmer. Conversations lose their hidden tension because you no longer seek complete control over outcomes. Conflicts become clearer because your attention remains on your own conduct instead of endless speculation about another person's motives. Forgiveness becomes easier because you understand that every person struggles according to the condition of their own judgments. This understanding does not make you passive, it makes you purposeful. You still correct injustice where appropriate. You still defend what is right. You still withdraw from harmful influences when necessary. The difference is that your actions arise from reason rather than wounded expectation. You no longer waste precious strength wishing people possessed a character they have not yet cultivated. There is profound dignity in allowing others the freedom to become who they choose while refusing to surrender your own commitment to virtue. Some people will respond to your fairness with fairness, others will answer kindness with indifference, others may even oppose you despite your sincerity. None of these responses possess the authority to alter your principles unless you willingly hand them that authority. As this discipline matures, your relationships become healthier because they are no longer burdened by impossible demands. You stop asking others to carry responsibility for your emotional balance. You stop requiring constant reassurance before acting confidently. You stop measuring your worth by fluctuating attention. Instead, you carry into every relationship a steady character already anchored within itself. Freedom arrives quietly. It appears the day you no longer need another person's approval to remain honorable. It appears when criticism no longer persuades you to abandon truth. It appears when silence from others no longer creates panic. It appears when gratitude is welcomed but never required. It appears when your actions are guided by virtue rather than by anticipated reward. Carry this practice into every meeting, every conversation, and every relationship. Offer honesty because honesty belongs to you. Offer patience because patience belongs to you. Offer justice because justice belongs to you. Offer kindness because kindness belongs to you. Leave praise, recognition, gratitude, and acceptance where they have always belonged, within the freedom of other minds. When you finally release every expectation that depends entirely upon another person's choices, you recover something far greater than certainty. You recover yourself. Your peace no longer rises and falls with changing opinions. Your purpose no longer waits for permission. Your character no longer bends beneath disappointment. You become steady because your inner life rests only upon what reason has always declared to be truly yours. In that quiet freedom, relationships become more sincere, your judgments become clearer, and your days are no longer governed by what another person chooses, but by the unwavering discipline with which you choose to live. Number 6. Practice virtue until every choice reflects your highest nature. Your life is not shaped by a few extraordinary decisions. It is shaped by the ordinary choices you make so often that you no longer notice them. Every reply you give, every desire you follow, every promise you keep or abandon, every judgment you accept without examination slowly forms the person you become. Character is not built in moments of attention alone. It is built in the countless moments when no one is watching and no reward is guaranteed. This is why the disciplined life does not begin by asking what success looks like. It begins by asking what kind of person each choice is quietly creating. Many people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity while neglecting the quality of their daily conduct. They believe one great achievement will transform them into someone admirable, yet no accomplishment can replace a neglected character. A person who reaches every outward goal while abandoning justice, honesty, moderation, and wisdom has not advanced. They have merely decorated an undisciplined life with visible rewards. The condition of the soul remains exactly what repeated choices have made it. Virtue is not an occasional performance reserved for important moments. It is the constant agreement between your reason and your actions. It appears when you speak truth, although silence would protect your comfort. It appears when you remain fair while others become unreasonable. It appears when you refuse excess although desire urges indulgence. It appears when you continue fulfilling your duty without demanding immediate recognition. Virtue is not measured by admiration from others. It is measured by the harmony between your highest understanding and your daily conduct. Look carefully at the decisions you make from morning until evening. Each one asks a quiet question. Will you choose what is easy or what is right? Will you choose what flatters your pride or what strengthens your character? Will you choose immediate satisfaction or lasting integrity? These questions rarely announce themselves dramatically. They arrive disguised as ordinary moments. They appear when no one notices whether you keep your word. They appear when irritation invites harsh speech. They appear when convenience encourages dishonesty. It is within these unnoticed moments that your life is truly being formed. Most people imagine that temptation arrives only through obvious wrongdoing. More often, it arrives through small compromises repeated so frequently that they become familiar. A slight exaggeration appears harmless. A neglected responsibility seems insignificant. An unnecessary complaint feels justified. A promise delayed appears understandable. None of these decisions seem important in isolation, yet every repeated compromise weakens the habit of choosing according to reason. Eventually, the mind begins accepting convenience as its highest standard instead of virtue. You must therefore stop evaluating your actions according to comfort. Comfort changes from one moment to the next. The question worthy of examination is different. Ask whether this choice strengthens the person you are trying to become. Every decision either trains your character or weakens it. There is no neutral ground. Even moments of inattention quietly educate the soul because habits continue forming whether you are watching them or not. Virtue demands consistency rather than intensity. It is not enough to act honorably when circumstances are favorable. The true examination comes when honorable action becomes difficult. Anyone can speak kindly when they receive kindness first. Anyone can remain honest when dishonesty offers no advantage. The disciplined person remains devoted to what is right precisely when abandoning it appears profitable. That is the difference between appearance and character. Appearance depends upon conditions. Character remains steady regardless of conditions. Many people admire virtue in theory while resisting it in practice. They praise honesty until honesty requires sacrifice. They praise patience until delay becomes personal. They praise justice until fairness costs them an advantage. They praise moderation until desire becomes powerful. It is easy to admire excellence from a distance. The greater task is allowing excellence to govern every ordinary decision without exception. Each morning, remind yourself that your highest purpose is not to accumulate praise, wealth, comfort, or influence. Those things remain uncertain because they depend upon many circumstances beyond your authority. Your purpose is much simpler and much more demanding. It is to ensure that every choice placed before you receives an answer worthy of reason. If this becomes your aim, no day is wasted because every circumstance becomes another opportunity to practice virtue. As you prepare for the day, imagine the situations most likely to test your discipline. Someone may speak impatiently. A task may become frustrating. Fatigue may weaken your attention. Temptation may encourage shortcuts. Success may invite pride. Failure may invite discouragement. Meet each possibility before it arrives by deciding in advance which virtue the moment requires. Preparation gives reason a stronger voice before emotion begins its argument. Throughout your day, pause before important decisions and ask yourself one quiet question. If this choice became my permanent habit, what kind of person would I become? This question removes attention from temporary consequences and directs it toward lasting character. Suddenly, small decisions reveal their true importance. A careless word is no longer merely a sentence, it becomes practice in carelessness. A truthful admission is no longer merely honesty, it becomes practice in integrity. Pay particular attention to the moments when no one could discover your actions. These moments reveal whether virtue itself is your reward or whether reputation has quietly become your true motivation. It requires little discipline to act honorably while being observed. Greater discipline appears when only your own conscience bears witness. The soul learns honesty not because others demand it, but because reason recognizes that deception always damages the person who practices it. You will often encounter situations where two paths appear before you. One promises immediate relief, the other preserves your character. Choose carefully. Immediate relief fades quickly. Character remains. Temporary comfort disappears with changing circumstances. The habits built through disciplined action accompany you into every future decision. Every difficult choice becomes easier when virtue has already become familiar through repeated practice. Do not expect virtue to feel effortless in the beginning. Long-established habits rarely surrender without resistance. The mind accustomed to convenience will argue against discipline. Desire will invent convincing reasons for delay. Pride will defend obvious mistakes. Fear will encourage silence when truth deserves expression. Listen carefully, but do not obey automatically. Let reason examine every argument before granting agreement. One of the greatest obstacles to virtue is the desire to appear virtuous. When admiration becomes your goal, your attention shifts away from genuine improvement toward performance. You begin choosing actions for their appearance rather than their moral worth. This creates division within the soul because outward conduct no longer reflects inward intention. The disciplined person quietly abandons such performance. Their concern is not whether others approve of their character, but whether their own judgments remain faithful to reason. Examine the words you speak each day. Language reveals the direction of the inner life. Words shaped by impatience strengthen impatience. Words shaped by fairness strengthen fairness. Every sentence trains the mind that speaks it. Before speaking, ask whether your words express truth, moderation, and justice together. If they fail any of these measures, silence often serves virtue more faithfully than speech. Likewise, examine your use of time. Every hour invested strengthens something within you. Time given to thoughtful reflection strengthens wisdom. Time given to meaningful duty strengthens discipline. Time surrendered to endless distraction strengthens forgetfulness of purpose. Ask not whether an activity is pleasant, but whether it contributes to the formation of excellent character. A person eventually resembles whatever repeatedly receives their attention. The disciplined life also requires courage to admit mistakes quickly. Pride prefers excuses because excuses protect self-image. Virtue prefers correction because correction protects character. Whenever you discover that your judgment was mistaken, welcome the opportunity to improve rather than defending the error. Every honest admission weakens vanity and strengthens wisdom. Refusing correction only extends the influence of false judgment. Throughout your interactions with others, remember that virtue belongs to your conduct, not to their response. Speak respectfully even if respect is not returned. Fulfill your responsibilities even if appreciation remains absent. Keep your promises even when breaking them would benefit you. The value of these actions does not depend upon external reward. Their value lies in the kind of person they gradually create within you. Do not separate your public life from your private life. Character divided against itself cannot remain peaceful. If honesty governs your speech before others, let it also govern your private decisions. If justice directs your actions in visible moments, let it also direct unseen moments. The soul finds stability when the same principles guide every part of life without contradiction. Practice moderation not because pleasure is evil, but because dependence weakens freedom. Whenever appetite begins deciding your actions, reason quietly loses authority. Enjoy what is appropriate without becoming ruled by it. Whether the desire concerns comfort, recognition, entertainment, or possessions, ask whether you still possess the ability to decline it without inner conflict. If not, your practice must begin there. Each evening, conduct a careful review of your choices rather than your achievements. Ask where virtue guided your conduct naturally and where habit overcame reason. Recall moments when honesty became difficult. Remember opportunities where patience could have been stronger. Notice situations where moderation gave way to excess. This examination is not meant to produce guilt, it is meant to produce clarity. Tomorrow's improvement depends upon today's honest reflection. As this discipline continues, your standards begin changing. You no longer ask whether others behaved well. You ask whether your own conduct reflected excellence. You no longer measure success by comfort or recognition. You measure it by fidelity to virtue. A difficult day lived honorably becomes more valuable than an easy day wasted in carelessness. This reversal changes everything because your satisfaction now depends upon something entirely within your own governance. There will be occasions when virtue appears costly. Honesty may threaten opportunity. Justice may require sacrifice. Self-restraint may postpone pleasure. Compassion may demand patience when irritation feels easier. During such moments, remember that every lasting good requires faithful practice. The price of virtue is always smaller than the price of abandoning it. A compromised character quietly burdens every future decision. A strengthened character quietly supports every future challenge. As your understanding deepens, you begin recognizing that virtue is not one practice among many. It is the organizing principle of the entire life. Wisdom directs what should be chosen. Justice directs how others should be treated. Courage sustains honorable action during difficulty. Moderation prevents desire from becoming a master. Together, these qualities produce a life governed by reason instead of impulse. Do not seek perfection in a single day. Seek unwavering direction. Some days your discipline will be stronger than others. Some decisions will reveal weaknesses you had not previously noticed. Welcome these discoveries. Hidden flaws cannot be corrected. Seen flaws become opportunities for further practice. Every sincere return to virtue strengthens the habit of returning again. Gradually, your decisions require less inner conflict because excellence becomes familiar. You stop asking whether honesty is worth the effort. You simply speak honestly. You stop debating whether patience deserves practice. You naturally remain patient. Virtue slowly becomes less like an external rule and more like your natural way of responding to life. This transformation occurs not through sudden inspiration, but through thousands of faithful choices made with careful attention. The world around you may continue changing. Circumstances will remain uncertain. People will continue acting according to the condition of their own judgments. None of this prevents you from living according to your highest nature. Every sunrise places the same invitation before you. Will today's choices reflect the person reason calls you to become, or the person impulse encourages you to remain? Carry this question into every hour. Let it accompany your speech, your work, your relationships, your moments of solitude, your successes and your disappointments. Allow no decision to escape examination. Let every action become another opportunity to strengthen wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. The disciplined soul is not formed by wishing for excellence. It is formed by repeatedly choosing excellence until no lesser standard feels acceptable. One day you will look back and realize that your life changed quietly rather than dramatically. There was no single moment when character suddenly appeared complete. Instead, there were countless ordinary decisions where reason patiently guided another choice toward virtue. Those choices accumulated into habits. Those habits became character. That character became the foundation upon which every future challenge could be met with calm confidence. This is the highest work entrusted to you. Practice virtue until every choice reflects your highest nature, and no circumstance will possess the power to persuade you away from the person you have deliberately become. Number 7. Examine your judgments before blaming life for your suffering. Before you accuse life of being unfair, ask whether you have judged it fairly. This question is difficult because it removes the comfort of easy blame. It asks you to turn away from circumstances and toward the quiet activity of your own mind. Most people never make this turn. They examine events endlessly while leaving their own judgments untouched. They become experts on what others have done and strangers to the thoughts that shape every reaction within themselves. As long as this habit continues, suffering grows faster than wisdom because the true source of disturbance remains hidden beneath constant attention to the outside world. Life presents events. Your mind gives those events meaning. Between these two realities lies the place where your freedom either strengthens or disappears. The event itself may be unavoidable. Your judgment about the event is where the greater struggle begins. If you never examine that judgment, you quietly become the author of unnecessary suffering while believing life itself deserves the blame. Think carefully about how often a single conclusion changes the weight of an experience. A delayed opportunity becomes proof that your future has been ruined. A disagreement becomes evidence that respect has vanished forever. A mistake becomes confirmation that you are incapable. None of these conclusions exist within the event itself. They are additions created by the mind, yet once accepted without examination, they begin directing your emotions, your speech, and your actions as though they were undeniable truth. The disciplined soul refuses to place complete trust in its first interpretation. It understands that appearances often arrive before understanding. An event enters your life without explanation. Almost immediately, your mind rushes to explain it. This speed creates confidence, but confidence is not the same as accuracy. A quick judgment often satisfies the desire for certainty while leading you further from reality. Reason asks you to slow this process until truth becomes more valuable than immediate explanation. Notice how naturally the mind protects itself from responsibility. When disappointment appears, it quickly searches for someone else to blame. It points toward difficult people, unfortunate timing, unfair conditions, or unexpected obstacles. Sometimes these things truly contribute to hardship. Yet even then, another question remains unanswered. What part did your own judgment play in increasing the burden? Until this question is faced honestly, improvement remains impossible because your attention never reaches the place where genuine change can occur. There is a quiet temptation to believe that suffering always arrives from outside. This belief feels comforting because it removes the need for self-examination. If circumstances alone are responsible, then there is little reason to discipline your own thinking. You simply wait for life to improve. Yet waiting cannot educate the soul. Only honest examination can do that. A person who waits for perfect conditions may wait an entire lifetime without discovering peace. Each judgment deserves careful questioning before it receives your agreement. When your mind declares that something is unbearable, ask whether endurance has truly become impossible or merely uncomfortable. When it insists that another person has destroyed your peace, ask whether peace was ever meant to depend upon another person's conduct. When it tells you that your value has diminished because fortune changed, ask whether your character has actually become less honest, less just, or less disciplined. These questions return authority to reason before emotion turns temporary impressions into permanent beliefs. Many people unknowingly create a second hardship after the first one arrives. The original event may already be difficult, yet the mind immediately adds unnecessary conclusions. It predicts endless failure from one disappointment. It imagines permanent loneliness from one separation. It creates hopelessness from one obstacle. Soon the person is no longer responding to reality but to stories built upon reality. The event occupies one place. The imagination multiplies it into many. This habit becomes especially dangerous because repeated judgments slowly become unquestioned assumptions. What begins as a passing interpretation eventually becomes the lens through which every future experience is viewed. A person who repeatedly tells themselves that people cannot be trusted begins finding evidence for distrust everywhere. A person who repeatedly believes that failure defines identity eventually hesitates before every meaningful effort. The judgment quietly reshapes perception until the world appears to confirm what the mind decided long ago. Do not mistake familiarity for truth. A belief repeated for many years may still be false. The length of time you have carried a judgment says nothing about its accuracy. Habit often disguises itself as certainty. The disciplined person willingly questions even long-established conclusions because loyalty belongs to truth rather than personal comfort. Begin each morning with a commitment that differs from the ordinary approach. Instead of asking what difficulties the day may contain, ask what judgments will require your careful attention. Prepare yourself to meet inconvenience without immediately assigning meaning to it. Prepare yourself to encounter disagreement without instantly concluding that you have been disrespected. Prepare yourself to experience uncertainty without deciding that disaster has already begun. This preparation trains the mind to observe before interpreting. As your day unfolds, practice identifying the precise moment where judgment enters experience. You receive unexpected criticism. Before reacting, notice the sentence your mind quietly forms. Perhaps it says, "They have ruined my reputation." Perhaps it says, "I will never recover from this." Pause before allowing that sentence to become your reality. Separate the event from the interpretation. The criticism exists. The larger story remains optional until reason has examined it. This practice requires patience because the mind dislikes uncertainty. It wants immediate conclusions. It wants clear enemies. It wants simple explanations. Yet wisdom often grows through restraint rather than speed. A disciplined judgment waits long enough to gather understanding before deciding what anything truly means. Such patience protects the soul from countless unnecessary disturbances. You will often discover that your greatest suffering does not arise from present reality, but from imagined futures. A single challenge appears before you, yet your mind immediately begins constructing years of possible consequences. You begin grieving events that have not occurred. You begin fearing outcomes that exist only as speculation. In doing so, today's responsibility is abandoned while tomorrow's uncertainty receives all your attention. Reason gently returns you to the present where action remains possible. There is another form of mistaken judgment that deserves careful attention. Sometimes the mind quietly declares that comfort is necessary before virtue can exist. It believes patience requires easy circumstances. It believes honesty requires safety. It believes moderation requires abundance. These judgments make excellence conditional upon favorable conditions. Yet the disciplined life teaches the opposite. Virtue remains available in every circumstance because it belongs to your choices rather than your surroundings. When another person behaves poorly, examine your judgment before examining their character. Their actions may indeed deserve correction, but your first responsibility remains your own response. Ask whether anger has exaggerated the situation. Ask whether wounded pride has interpreted disagreement as personal attack. Ask whether your desire to be right has become stronger than your desire to understand. These questions preserve clarity when emotion seeks immediate victory. Practice describing events in their simplest form before adding interpretation. Instead of saying everything has gone wrong, describe only what actually occurred. Instead of declaring that someone never respects you, identify the specific action that disturbed you. Precision weakens emotional exaggeration because it limits judgment to observable reality rather than broad conclusions. A disciplined mind speaks accurately because accurate speech supports accurate thinking. Throughout the day, become attentive to words that reveal careless judgments. Listen whenever your mind uses absolute language without evidence. Statements declaring that nothing ever works, everyone disappoints you, or every effort fails usually reveal emotion speaking more loudly than reason. Replace exaggeration with careful observation. This single adjustment gradually transforms the quality of your inner life because thought becomes more faithful to reality. One of the greatest obstacles to wisdom is the desire to protect your own opinions from examination. Pride quietly convinces you that changing your judgment means admitting weakness. In truth, the opposite is closer to reality. The willingness to correct mistaken thinking demonstrates strength because it places truth above vanity. Every corrected judgment strengthens the mind. Every defended falsehood weakens it. Do not fear discovering that your own interpretations have increased your suffering. Such discoveries are not humiliations. They are opportunities for freedom. A mistaken judgment hidden beneath years of habit quietly governs your life without resistance. Once brought into the light, it loses much of its authority. Clarity often begins where excuses end. As evening arrives, dedicate time to reviewing not only what happened, but how you interpreted what happened. Ask yourself which judgments proved accurate and which arose from haste, fear, pride, or desire. Notice where assumptions replaced evidence. Notice where imagination outran reality. This daily review slowly teaches the mind to distinguish between facts and interpretations. Such distinction becomes one of the strongest protections against unnecessary suffering. You may discover that some judgments return repeatedly despite your efforts. Do not become discouraged. Long-practiced habits rarely disappear after one examination. Meet them with steady persistence. Every time you interrupt an unhealthy conclusion before it governs your conduct, you strengthen reason's influence over the next encounter. Progress often appears quietly through repetition rather than dramatic transformation. You will also notice that examining your judgments changes the way you understand other people. Instead of assuming harmful intentions immediately, you become slower to condemn. Instead of reacting from wounded pride, you seek clearer understanding. This does not make you naive, it makes you careful. Carefulness protects justice because justice depends upon seeing reality as clearly as possible before reaching conclusions. As this discipline matures, your relationship with hardship begins changing. Difficult experiences no longer automatically produce despair because you have learned that your first interpretation may not be your wisest one. Setbacks become invitations to examine rather than opportunities to complain. Delays become occasions for patience rather than evidence of failure. Uncertainty becomes a reminder to return attention toward present duty instead of imagined disasters. There will still be pain because pain belongs to ordinary human existence. There will still be disappointment because no life escapes changing circumstances. Yet unnecessary suffering begins decreasing because you no longer multiply every difficulty through careless judgment. The mind gradually becomes a place where reason patiently examines appearances before granting them authority. Remember that no event possesses the power to interpret itself. Every circumstance waits for your judgment before it enters your inner life. If your judgments remain careless, even ordinary difficulties become overwhelming burdens. If your judgments become disciplined, even demanding circumstances lose much of their ability to disturb your peace. The event remains what it is. Your interpretation determines whether it becomes instruction or torment. Carry this practice into every conversation, every challenge, every success, and every disappointment. Whenever emotion urges immediate conclusions, pause long enough for reason to speak. Whenever blame becomes your first impulse, ask what judgment has quietly accompanied it. Whenever life appears responsible for all your suffering, search honestly for the interpretation you have added to the event. There you will often find the beginning of freedom. The disciplined life does not ask you to deny reality. It asks you to see reality without the distortions created by fear, pride, resentment, or uncontrolled desire. It teaches you to become a faithful guardian of your own judgments, because those judgments quietly shape every part of your existence. Examine them with courage, correct them with humility, strengthen them through reason. Then you will no longer wander through life believing that circumstances alone determine your peace. You will discover that your greatest responsibility has always been the quality of the judgments you choose to accept, and within that responsibility lies a freedom that no changing event can ever take away. Number 8. Discipline your desires before they begin ruling your entire life. Every life is directed by something. If it is not directed by reason, it will be directed by desire. There is no empty space within the human soul where nothing rules. Either your choices arise from careful judgment, or they are pulled by impulses that never pause to ask whether they deserve obedience. This is why the greatest danger is not that you have desires. The greatest danger is that you have stopped questioning them. The moment desire becomes your master instead of your servant, your freedom begins to disappear without your noticing it. Many people believe they are making independent choices while quietly following whatever promise of pleasure, comfort, praise, or possession appears before them. They call this freedom because no one is forcing them. Yet a person who cannot refuse their own impulses is not free. They are simply carrying their chains within themselves. The strongest prison is often invisible because it is mistaken for personal preference. Observe your ordinary day with complete honesty. How many decisions begin with the question of what feels pleasant rather than what is right? How often do you delay necessary work because comfort calls more loudly? How often do you speak to gain approval instead of expressing truth? How often do you seek entertainment when silence would reveal thoughts you would rather avoid? These moments appear small, yet together they reveal who governs your life. Desire rarely announces itself as an enemy. It speaks softly. It promises immediate satisfaction while remaining silent about the habits it quietly creates. It says that one unnecessary indulgence does not matter. It says discipline can begin tomorrow. It says this comfort has been earned. It says your principles may rest for one day without consequence. If accepted repeatedly, these whispers slowly become your character. What once felt like an occasional exception becomes your ordinary way of living. You must learn to distinguish between what is naturally appropriate and what has become an unhealthy attachment. Food nourishes the body, yet constant indulgence weakens self-command. Rest restores strength, yet laziness destroys purpose. Recognition may encourage effort, yet dependence upon praise corrupts integrity. Possessions may serve practical needs, yet endless accumulation distracts the soul from what truly deserves attention. The object itself is often not the problem. The condition of your relationship with it determines whether it serves reason or rules it. Every unchecked desire quietly carries a hidden demand. It insists that peace cannot exist until it is satisfied. It tells you that happiness waits somewhere beyond the next achievement, the next purchase, the next compliment, or the next comfort. As long as you believe this promise, your peace will always remain delayed. Your mind will continue chasing what has not yet arrived while overlooking the freedom already available through disciplined judgment. Ask yourself a difficult question. What do you believe you cannot live peacefully without? The answer deserves careful examination because whatever you believe is absolutely necessary for your happiness has already gained power over your inner life. If losing it would destroy your peace, then your peace has been placed where fortune may easily remove it. The disciplined soul refuses to grant such authority to external things. It appreciates them without becoming dependent upon them. It welcomes success without making success the measure of worth. It enjoys comfort without becoming unable to endure discomfort. It values companionship without surrendering inner stability to another person's choices. This balance protects freedom because it prevents temporary conditions from becoming permanent masters. Each morning, before the world begins presenting new desires, spend a few moments preparing your own mind. Remind yourself that many attractive opportunities will appear throughout the day. Some will invite unnecessary distraction. Others will encourage impatience, vanity, or excess. Decide before these moments arrive that reason rather than impulse will govern your response. Preparation strengthens discipline because it gives your highest principles a voice before temptation begins speaking. As the day unfolds, pay close attention to the first movement of desire. Do not wait until it becomes overwhelming. Observe it while it is still small. Notice how quickly the mind begins creating arguments in its favor. It explains why this exception is reasonable. It insists that discipline can safely pause. It invents urgent reasons for immediate satisfaction. The earlier you recognize these arguments, the easier they become to examine calmly instead of obeying automatically. Whenever a strong desire appears, pause long enough to ask 3 questions. Is this within my control? Is pursuing this consistent with virtue? Will satisfying this strengthen my character or weaken it? These questions interrupt the habit of immediate reaction. They return authority to reason before impulse gains complete control. Not every desire deserves fulfillment simply because it has appeared within your mind. Many people fear that disciplined living requires rejecting everything enjoyable. This misunderstanding prevents them from practicing self-command. The goal is not to remove every pleasant experience from life. The goal is to ensure that pleasure never becomes your ruler. Enjoy what is appropriate without becoming unable to remain peaceful when it is absent. This difference changes everything. The disciplined person possesses many things without being possessed by any of them. Notice how desire often disguises itself as necessity. You tell yourself that you need constant recognition to remain confident. You believe uninterrupted comfort is essential for productivity. You assume immediate success is required before your efforts have value. Yet when these assumptions are examined carefully, they reveal themselves as preferences rather than necessities. Reason teaches the mind to separate genuine needs from endless wants. One of the clearest signs that desire has become excessive is emotional disturbance whenever it is denied. If a small inconvenience produces intense frustration, something greater than the event itself is operating within you. If waiting patiently feels impossible, examine what expectation desire has created. If criticism destroys your confidence, ask whether approval has become an unhealthy attachment. Strong reactions often reveal hidden dependencies that ordinary comfort keeps concealed. Practice voluntary restraint in ordinary moments. Occasionally choose simplicity when greater comfort is available. Delay unnecessary pleasures instead of immediately satisfying them. Complete your responsibilities before seeking amusement. Accept small inconveniences without complaint. These exercises are not punishments, they are training for the soul. A person who willingly practices restraint in peaceful times develops greater steadiness when life imposes hardship unexpectedly. Your attention deserves discipline as much as your appetites. The modern mind is constantly invited toward distraction. Every moment offers another reason to abandon thoughtful reflection. If you cannot govern where your attention rests, you will struggle to govern anything else. Throughout the day, deliberately return your attention to the task before you. Refuse to allow endless novelty to weaken your ability to remain fully present with what duty requires. There will be moments when desire and reason point toward different paths. Desire seeks immediate satisfaction. Reason sees long-term consequences. Desire asks what feels pleasant now. Reason asks what strengthens character over time. During these moments, remember that every choice becomes practice. Each time you obey reason, discipline grows stronger. Each time you surrender without examination, impulse gains greater influence over future decisions. Pay careful attention to envy, because it is one of desire's most deceptive forms. The moment you begin measuring your life against another person's possessions, achievements, or recognition, your own judgment becomes clouded. You stop examining your character and begin chasing appearances. Another person's fortune has nothing to do with your commitment to virtue. Direct your attention back toward your own conduct, where meaningful progress remains possible. Likewise, examine ambition with honesty. Ambition guided by reason seeks excellence in character while fulfilling worthy responsibilities. Ambition ruled by desire seeks superiority over others and endless external validation. Outward success may look similar in both cases, yet the inner condition differs completely. One produces freedom because it remains grounded in virtue. The other produces constant anxiety because satisfaction always depends upon circumstances beyond your control. As evening approaches, review the desires that appeared throughout your day. Which ones deserved your attention, and which quietly attempted to rule you? Where did you preserve self-command? Where did impulse move more quickly than reason? This examination is not meant to produce shame. It is meant to strengthen awareness. Every honest review prepares the mind to respond more wisely tomorrow. You will discover that many desires lose their power simply because they have been observed carefully. What once seemed irresistible often weakens when examined patiently instead of obeyed immediately. Much of desire's strength comes from speed. It depends upon acting before reason has time to ask difficult questions. Slow the process, and many impulses reveal themselves as passing visitors rather than lasting necessities. There will also be occasions when fulfilling a desire remains entirely appropriate. Eat when nourishment is needed. Rest when genuine fatigue requires recovery. Celebrate meaningful accomplishments with gratitude. Receive kindness gladly. The disciplined life does not reject ordinary human goods. It simply refuses to allow them to become the foundation of inner peace. Gratitude enjoys them, while freedom remains intact without them. As this practice deepens, your relationship with discomfort changes. You no longer panic whenever a desire remains unsatisfied. You discover that temporary longing cannot injure your character unless you surrender your judgment. This realization produces quiet confidence. You begin trusting your capacity to endure incompleteness without becoming restless or resentful. Eventually, you stop asking whether every desire can be fulfilled. Instead, you ask whether every desire deserves fulfillment. This single change transforms the direction of your life. You become less interested in acquiring more and more interested in becoming better. You spend less energy chasing what constantly changes and more energy strengthening what remains within your authority. The disciplined soul understands that every uncontrolled desire carries an endless appetite. Give it one victory, and it quickly demands another. Satisfy every impulse, and the impulses multiply rather than disappear. Lasting contentment cannot be built by feeding endless wants. It is built by teaching the mind that peace comes from living according to reason and virtue instead of endless acquisition. Carry this understanding into every decision. Before reaching for comfort, ask whether courage is required instead. Before pursuing recognition, ask whether integrity alone is already enough. Before seeking another possession, ask whether your present life lacks what is necessary for honorable living. Before following every impulse, ask whether this path leads toward greater freedom or greater dependence. Your life will always contain desires because you are human. The question is not whether they will appear. The question is whether they will govern your choices or submit to your judgment. Train them patiently, correct them consistently, refuse to grant them authority they have not earned. Let reason remain the ruler of your inner life, and let every desire stand before it, awaiting permission rather than giving commands. When you practice this discipline day after day, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind grows quieter because it no longer races endlessly toward the next satisfaction. Your choices become steadier because they arise from principle instead of impulse. Your relationships become healthier because they are no longer burdened by endless demands. Your work becomes more meaningful because it is guided by duty rather than vanity. Your peace becomes more durable because it depends upon the condition of your own character instead of the fulfillment of every passing desire. This is genuine freedom, not the freedom to follow every impulse without restraint, but the freedom to remain faithful to reason, regardless of what desire promises. A person who governs their own desires cannot easily be ruled by fortune, temptation, or circumstance. Such a person carries within themselves a stability that no external pleasure can improve and no external loss can destroy. Through this daily discipline, your highest nature gradually becomes stronger than every passing impulse, and your life begins to reflect the quiet strength of a soul that has chosen mastery over itself above all else. Number 9. Remember death daily and value each present moment wisely. You speak as though time belongs to you, yet you have never possessed even a single tomorrow. The only moment ever placed within your care is the one you are living now. Everything else is memory or expectation. Still, the mind behaves as though life stretches endlessly ahead. It delays difficult conversations, postpones necessary discipline, excuses repeated weaknesses, and imagines there will always be another opportunity to become the person reason calls you to be. This illusion quietly steals entire years while convincing you that nothing important has been lost. The certainty of death is not a reason for despair. It is the clearest reason to stop wasting the life that remains. Every sunrise silently removes one more day from the number you have left. You do not know how many remain, and that uncertainty is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. A person who truly understands the limits of life begins treating every ordinary hour with greater seriousness because they recognize that nothing can purchase another one once it has passed. Most people avoid thinking about death because they believe it will darken their lives. The opposite is often true. It is forgetfulness that darkens life. When you imagine unlimited time, you become careless with it. You postpone your responsibilities because tomorrow appears guaranteed. You tolerate habits that weaken your character because change can always begin later. You allow resentment to remain because reconciliation seems possible at any future moment. Yet the future has never signed such a promise. Consider how differently you would speak today if you knew this conversation might be your last. Would you waste it on unnecessary anger? Would you protect your pride instead of telling the truth? Would you delay forgiveness because your emotions demanded more time? The awareness of mortality strips away countless distractions and reveals what genuinely deserves your attention. It reminds you that character matters more than delay and virtue matters more than comfort. The disciplined person does not remember death in order to become fearful. They remember it in order to become honest. Death exposes every false priority. It asks whether the things occupying your thoughts today will still deserve such attention when your life reaches its end. Many worries immediately lose their importance beneath this examination. Endless arguments become smaller. Petty competition becomes meaningless. the pursuit of empty approval begins to look like a poor exchange for the limited time entrusted to you. Notice how often your days disappear without conscious choice. You wake with good intentions, yet your attention is scattered by trivial concerns. Hours vanish through distraction. Small irritations consume energy that should have strengthened your character. Evening arrives, and you wonder where the day has gone. This pattern repeats until weeks become years. Life rarely disappears through dramatic loss alone. More often it slips away through unnoticed neglect. Each morning, before beginning your work, remind yourself of a simple truth. This day is not owed to you. It has been placed before you without any guarantee that another will follow. Let this thought sharpen your judgment rather than weaken your spirit. Ask yourself whether today's choices deserve the limited time they require. Ask whether your attention will be given to virtue or scattered among countless unnecessary concerns. This morning, discipline changes the quality of every decision. You become less willing to waste energy on resentment because resentment consumes time without producing wisdom. You become less interested in proving yourself superior because vanity contributes nothing lasting to the soul. You become more careful with your words because every conversation may be more significant than you presently understand. You become more faithful to your responsibilities because postponement no longer appears harmless. Many people imagine they fear death itself, when what they truly fear is having lived carelessly. They fear reaching the end while realizing they spent their best years pursuing distractions instead of excellence. They fear discovering that comfort became more important than character. They fear recognizing that they understood what was right long before they gathered the courage to practice it. These regrets do not begin at the end of life. They begin each time reason is ignored in favor of temporary convenience. You cannot control the length of your life, but you retain authority over the quality of your conduct within it. This distinction changes everything. A short life lived according to virtue possesses greater dignity than a long life spent abandoning reason whenever desire demands it. The measure of existence has never depended upon years alone. It depends upon whether those years were governed by wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Throughout your day, pause occasionally and ask yourself whether your present activity deserves this portion of your life. Time is not merely passing while you perform an action. Time is being exchanged for it. Once exchanged, it cannot be reclaimed. Let this realization guide your choices carefully. If your actions strengthen your character, the exchange is worthwhile. If they merely satisfy passing impulses while weakening your discipline, the cost is greater than it first appears. Do not mistake constant activity for meaningful living. A busy person may still waste their days if their efforts lack direction. The disciplined life asks a different question. Not whether you accomplished many things, but whether your actions reflected reason. Purpose gives value to effort. Without purpose, movement alone accomplishes very little. The awareness of death also teaches humility. Every person you admire, every person you envy, every person you resent shares the same destination. Wealth cannot bargain with mortality. Status cannot postpone it. Reputation cannot escape it. This understanding softens pride because it reminds you that outward differences remain temporary. Character alone accompanies every decision until the final day. When someone offends you, remember how brief both your lives truly are. Ask yourself whether prolonged bitterness deserves the precious hours it demands. This does not require abandoning justice or ignoring genuine wrongdoing. It requires refusing to sacrifice your own peace to endless resentment. Time is too limited to spend it nourishing anger that produces neither wisdom nor virtue. Likewise, when success arrives, receive it with gratitude rather than arrogance. Every achievement remains temporary. Every position eventually passes to another. Every possession changes hands. Knowing this allows you to enjoy what is present without becoming attached to what cannot remain forever. Gratitude appreciates temporary gifts without expecting permanent ownership. There will be moments when fear of the future attempts to dominate your thinking. The mind imagines countless possibilities beyond its control. It rehearses losses that have not occurred. It delays present responsibilities while chasing uncertain outcomes. Remember that death itself teaches a different lesson. Since tomorrow is uncertain, your responsibility belongs entirely to today. Let tomorrow arrive in its own time. Today's duty already stands before you. Practice completing each task as though it deserves your full attention. Whether you are speaking with another person, performing your work, caring for your family, or sitting quietly in reflection, give yourself fully to the present responsibility. A divided mind loses much of life because it continually abandons the moment it actually possesses in pursuit of moments that do not yet exist. One of the greatest forms of disrespect toward life is postponing moral improvement. You tell yourself that discipline can wait until circumstances become easier. You imagine patience will develop naturally someday. You assume honesty can become more consistent after success has been achieved. Yet character is not strengthened through delay. Every postponed virtue becomes another opportunity lost. If something deserves practice, it deserves practice today. As evening approaches, conduct your daily examination with the seriousness of someone who understands that this day will never return. Ask yourself whether your judgments reflected wisdom. Ask whether your actions reflected justice. Ask whether courage remains stronger than fear. Ask whether moderation governed desire. Let every answer become instruction rather than accusation. The purpose of reflection is improvement, not self-condemnation. You may discover that certain concerns occupied far more attention than they deserved. Perhaps you worried excessively about another person's opinion. Perhaps you became frustrated by a minor inconvenience. Perhaps you pursued recognition instead of excellence. Notice these moments carefully because they reveal where your understanding of time still requires discipline. Every unnecessary distraction steals something that cannot be replaced. There is great freedom in accepting mortality instead of resisting it. Once you stop demanding certainty about the future, you become more capable of living wisely within the present. The mind no longer wastes itself attempting to control what has never belonged to it. Instead, it returns repeatedly to the only place where virtue can actually be practiced: this moment, this decision, this responsibility. The awareness of death also changes the way you understand relationships. Every meeting becomes more valuable because it may not be repeated. Every act of kindness becomes more meaningful because opportunities are limited. Every expression of gratitude becomes more urgent because silence may one day become permanent. This awareness encourages sincerity rather than delay. It teaches you to speak truth while time still allows it. Do not allow familiarity to convince you that ordinary moments lack significance. Much of life is made of simple conversations, quiet duties, daily work, and repeated acts of care. These moments appear small only because they occur often. In reality, they become the substance of your entire existence. To neglect them while waiting for extraordinary experiences is to overlook the very life you have been given. There will always be reasons to postpone self-examination. The mind claims it is too busy, too tired, or too distracted. Yet none of these excuses change the movement of time. Another day passes whether you examined yourself or not. Another opportunity disappears whether you acted according to reason or not. The passage of time remains faithful even when your discipline does not. Let this truth encourage action instead of delay. When discouragement visits you, remember that the value of a day is not determined by its comfort. A difficult day lived with integrity contributes more to your character than an easy day surrendered to carelessness. You cannot always choose pleasant circumstances, but you can choose whether those circumstances become opportunities for virtue or excuses for neglect. Carry the remembrance of mortality quietly rather than dramatically. It does not require constant sadness or endless reflection upon endings. It simply asks that you never forget the preciousness of the present hour. Let this awareness accompany your choices without overwhelming them. Let it remind you to act honestly before dishonesty becomes habit. Let it remind you to forgive before resentment hardens. Let it remind you to begin today rather than waiting for an uncertain tomorrow. Gradually, you will notice a profound change within yourself. Your priorities become clearer because unnecessary concerns lose their influence. Your speech becomes more thoughtful because careless words no longer seem worth the cost. Your work becomes more faithful because every effort is understood as part of a limited life rather than an endless one. Your relationships become more sincere because appreciation replaces assumption. The fear of death weakens when you spend your days living according to reason. A person who practices virtue consistently does not need to cling desperately to every passing moment because each day has already been used well. Peace grows naturally within the soul that has little regret about how it has chosen to live. Such peace cannot be created at the final hour if it has been ignored throughout the years. So let each morning become a reminder that another day has been entrusted to your care rather than promised to your possession. Let each decision honor the limited time available to you. Let each conversation reflect honesty and fairness. Let each challenge strengthen courage instead of complaint. Let each evening close with sincere examination and renewed commitment. Remember death not because life is hopeless, but because life is immeasurably valuable. Remember death so that you stop postponing the work that belongs to your character. Remember death so that your attention returns again and again to the present duty waiting before you. Remember death so that every passing day becomes an opportunity to live with greater wisdom, deeper justice, steadier courage, and stronger moderation. When you live this way, you no longer measure your life by how many years remain. You measure it by how faithfully each day reflects the highest principles within your own rational soul. Number 10. Become unshakable through constant practice of Stoic self-mastery. Strength is often misunderstood. Many believe it is measured by the ability to overpower obstacles, silence opponents, or endure endless hardship without emotion. Yet none of these reveal the deepest form of human strength. The strongest person is the one who governs themselves before attempting to govern anything else. A mind that remains directed by reason cannot easily be conquered by changing circumstances. A soul that has learned self-mastery possesses a stability that no praise can inflate and no criticism can destroy. This is the strength worthy of your life's effort. Every day you are presented with countless opportunities to surrender your inner authority. A careless remark invites anger. An unexpected setback encourages discouragement. A pleasant temptation asks you to abandon discipline. An uncertain future awakens fear. These moments appear ordinary, yet each one quietly asks the same question: who governs your life at this very moment? If the answer changes with every passing circumstance, then your character has not yet found firm ground. Many people believe they lose control suddenly. In truth, self-command is usually surrendered one small decision at a time. It begins when you stop questioning your first impulse. It grows when you excuse repeated compromises. It becomes habit when emotions begin making decisions that belong to reason. Eventually, you no longer notice the surrender because it has become familiar. You call it personality. You call it stress. You call it human nature. Yet beneath these names remains a simple reality. The governing part of your mind has quietly abandoned its proper task. The purpose of self-mastery is not to suppress your humanity. It is to place every part of your humanity under wise direction. Thoughts deserve examination before agreement. Emotions deserve acknowledgement before action. Desires deserve questioning before pursuit. Fears deserve investigation before obedience. Nothing within you should receive immediate authority simply because it appeared. Every impulse must first stand before reason and justify itself. This discipline begins the moment you stop treating yourself as two separate people. There is not one version of you for public moments and another for private ones. There is not one standard for easy days and another for difficult ones. Character becomes whole only when the same principles govern every circumstance. Consistency is not created by perfect conditions. It is created by repeated loyalty to virtue, regardless of conditions. Each morning, before speaking to anyone else, speak honestly to your own mind. Remind yourself that today will contain uncertainty. Some plans will succeed, others will fail. Some people will act wisely, others will not. None of these events possess the authority to decide whether you remain just, honest, courageous, or moderate. That responsibility belongs entirely to you. Begin your day by accepting this responsibility willingly rather than reluctantly. As the hours unfold, guard the entrance to your mind with careful attention. Every impression seeks admission. News, opinions, praise, criticism, fear, desire, and distraction all ask to influence your judgment. You cannot prevent these impressions from arriving, but you retain authority over which ones become beliefs. A disciplined mind does not open its gates carelessly. It examines every visitor before allowing it to remain. Whenever emotion begins speaking loudly, refuse to answer immediately. Pause long enough for reason to recover its place. This pause may last only a few breaths, yet it changes everything. Within that brief space lies your freedom. Without it, reaction becomes automatic. With it, deliberate choice becomes possible. Self-mastery is often hidden inside these quiet moments that the hurried mind rarely notices. Notice how often your attention wanders toward matters that have never belonged to your control. You speculate endlessly about another person's motives. You replay conversations that cannot be changed. You imagine future outcomes that have not arrived. While your mind remains occupied with these things, the present duty waits neglected. The disciplined person repeatedly returns attention to what can actually be governed. They release what belongs to fortune and strengthen what belongs to character. Do not expect your first attempt at self-command to feel natural. The undisciplined mind has practiced another way for many years. It has learned to react quickly, complain easily, and obey every passing impulse without examination. Such habits rarely disappear because of a single decision. They weaken through steady repetition of better choices. Every time reason guides your conduct instead of impulse, a new habit quietly begins taking root. Pay close attention to your speech because it reveals the condition of your inner government. Words spoken in haste often expose thoughts accepted without examination. Before speaking, ask whether your words reflect wisdom, justice, and moderation together. If they do not, silence usually strengthens your character more than unnecessary expression. Self-mastery is heard as much in restrained speech as in courageous speech. Likewise, examine your use of time. A person who cannot govern their hours will struggle to govern their life. Every moment given to distraction without purpose weakens attention. Every responsibility fulfilled with care strengthens discipline. Do not ask merely whether an activity occupies your time. Ask whether it forms your character. Hours eventually become habits, and habits eventually become identity. There will be days when your progress appears invisible. Old weaknesses may return. Familiar temptations may seem stronger than before. Do not mistake temporary struggle for permanent failure. The work of self-mastery unfolds quietly. Just as repeated neglect slowly weakens character, repeated discipline slowly strengthens it. Trust the process of daily practice more than the emotions of any single moment. One of the greatest signs of growing self-command is the ability to remain steady when external conditions change suddenly. Success no longer produces arrogance because your worth never depended upon success. Failure no longer produces despair because your commitment remains directed toward virtue rather than outcomes. Praise no longer controls your confidence. Criticism no longer determines your identity. Your center of gravity gradually moves inward where fortune possesses little influence. This does not mean becoming indifferent to life. It means becoming faithful to what deserves your deepest loyalty. Care for your relationships without allowing them to govern your peace. Fulfill your work without making achievement your identity. Appreciate comfort without becoming dependent upon it. Engage fully with the world while remembering that your highest responsibility remains the condition of your own character. Practice beginning every challenge with a simple question. What part of this belongs to my own conduct? This question immediately redirects attention away from blame and toward responsibility. Even when circumstances remain difficult, there is almost always some aspect of your response that still belongs to your authority. That is where discipline begins. That is where freedom remains alive. Do not overlook the value of small victories over yourself. Refusing one unnecessary complaint strengthens patience. Keeping one difficult promise strengthens integrity. Admitting one mistake strengthens humility. Completing one neglected responsibility strengthens discipline. These actions appear modest, yet they quietly reshape the entire direction of your life. Great character is built from faithful attention to ordinary decisions. There will be moments when your mind insists that one exception cannot matter. It tells you that discipline may safely rest today. It argues that your principles can be postponed until circumstances improve. Listen carefully, because these moments determine far more than dramatic occasions ever will. Character is rarely destroyed by one great failure. It is gradually weakened through repeated permission to abandon what reason already knows is right. As evening arrives, withdraw from the noise of the day and examine yourself without hostility or excuses. Ask where your judgments remained clear and where they became clouded. Ask where emotion served reason and where it attempted to replace it. Ask where desire remained moderate and where it quietly sought authority beyond its proper place. Let every answer become instruction rather than accusation. Honest examination prepares tomorrow's discipline. You may discover habits that have shaped your life for many years. Do not become discouraged by their persistence. Every long-practiced weakness was formed through repetition. It will be corrected through repetition as well. No lasting transformation occurs through occasional enthusiasm. It is built through ordinary faithfulness carried into ordinary days until new habits become familiar. As your practice deepens, you will notice that external events lose much of their ability to disturb your peace. This change does not occur because life becomes easier. It occurs because your responses become wiser. The same difficulties that once produced confusion now become opportunities to exercise patience. The same uncertainty that once created fear now invites trust in reason. The same criticism that once wounded pride now becomes material for self-examination. One of the clearest signs of self-mastery is the disappearance of unnecessary inner conflict. You no longer spend endless energy arguing with reality. You stop demanding that people behave according to your preferences before you can remain calm. You stop requiring perfect conditions before acting honorably. Acceptance replaces resistance because you have learned to distinguish between what belongs to your authority and what never has. This freedom cannot be given by another person. It cannot be purchased by wealth. It cannot be guaranteed by favorable fortune. It grows only through repeated discipline directed toward the governing part of your own mind. Every day offers another opportunity to strengthen it. Every challenge offers another opportunity to test it. Every failure offers another opportunity to refine it. Remember that self-mastery is never completed. It is a lifelong practice rather than a final achievement. The disciplined person does not assume they have outgrown the need for examination. They remain watchful because they understand how easily carelessness returns when attention weakens. Humility protects progress by reminding you that today's wisdom still requires tomorrow's practice. Carry this understanding into every season of your life. When circumstances are pleasant, practice gratitude without attachment. When circumstances become difficult, practice courage without complaint. When success arrives, practice moderation without pride. When failure appears, practice perseverance without self-pity. Let every condition become another occasion for strengthening the soul rather than another excuse for abandoning discipline. Gradually, your inner life becomes less dependent upon changing events and more firmly rooted in deliberate choice. You begin responding instead of reacting. You begin observing instead of assuming. You begin acting from principle instead of impulse. Others may notice your steadiness, but its true value lies deeper than outward appearance. It lies in the quiet confidence of knowing that your peace no longer depends upon fortune, but upon the quality of your own judgment. There will still be losses, there will still be uncertainty, there will still be moments that test every lesson you have practiced. Yet these experiences no longer find an unprepared mind. They meet a person who has spent countless ordinary days training the only thing that truly belongs to them. They meet someone who has learnt to govern thoughts before actions, judgments before emotions, and principles before desires. Make this your daily commitment. Rise each morning determined to strengthen your character more than your comfort. Walk through each challenge asking what virtue requires rather than what impulse prefers. End each evening by examining yourself with honesty and correcting whatever reason reveals. Repeat this practice without seeking shortcuts and without expecting immediate perfection. The person who follows this path becomes difficult to shake, not because life stops changing, but because their foundation no longer rests upon changing things. Their peace is protected by disciplined judgment. Their courage is sustained by repeated practice. Their integrity is strengthened through faithful action. Their freedom grows because they have stopped surrendering authority to every passing circumstance. This is the highest victory available to any human being. Not the conquest of others, but the quiet conquest of oneself. Not the accumulation of endless possessions, but the formation of unwavering character. Not the pursuit of constant comfort, but the steady practice of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation until they become the natural language of the soul. Continue this work every day without interruption, and you will become unshakable, not because the world has become gentle, but because your own mind has learned to remain governed by reason in every season of life.